to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening's meeting, and the first order of business is to You good? All right. First order of business is to recognize that Commissioner Roxana Ross is now going to be Vice Mayor for the next 6 months. So she'll take Commissioner Watts' place. I want to thank Commissioner Watts for serving as Vice Mayor for the past 6 months.
Thank you.
So we're going to rearrange it. We have our seats already rearranged. All right, so we'll move right into presentations. The first presentation we have is Chuck. The first presentation is Brian McNulty. He's a resident here in the village. He's a senior research associate at the University of Miami, as many of you know. And he's going to give a presentation on hurricane preparedness.
All right. Do you guys have the slide advancer thing? Okay. Trying to think of a good place to stand. Okay, thank you, everyone. Well, thank you, Mayor and Manager, for inviting me to give this brief presentation. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, but we'll have it online, so if you don't catch all the details, check on our website. All right, next slide, please. Just some quick introductory, very low-level introductory. Well, first of all, just a question. Who here is relatively new to Florida? Okay. 2. Okay, good. So it's not all of this might be too repetitive. Big picture-wise is it's a huge storm. As you can see, it's several hundred miles across. The view on the left, view on the right. Two different hurricanes. They're both intense hurricanes. Of course, not all of them look quite that well organized or kind of not the sort of thing you want to see knocking on your doorstep. But anyway, a rapidly rotating storm system with a low pressure center in the middle, strong winds, heavy rain. That's kind of the big picture. And of course, living here, if you watch any sort of news or listen to any sort of news, you'll know about them well in advance. All right, next slide, please. This is taking just a slice down through one of those. So those last two views were looking down on top. This is looking through it, if you could take a slice through it. You can kind of see there's an eye in the middle. If it's a really strong hurricane, they have this structure, an eye in the middle, which is calm, surrounded by an eye wall, which is actually the worst part. And then outside of that, for hundreds of miles, are the rain bands. And those can be somewhat unpleasant to go through as well. They can, you can go through periods of relative calm, and then all of a sudden the rain band comes, and strong wind gusts and heavy rain, and your trees break and all that, and you're not really expecting it. So that's just the kind of a cross-section of what a mature hurricane looks like. All right, next slide. And this is a question that always comes up is, does size matter? And it's kind of a yes and no question. Yes, it does, because the larger it is, the more area it affects with strong winds and heavy rain. Also, larger storms are going to create a larger storm surge. But the no part is it doesn't really matter. A large storm can be weaker than a small storm, or vice versa. A small storm can be stronger. A small storm can be stronger than a large storm. These are two examples here. This is Floyd and Andrew. Andrew, of course, was a Category 5 here, and it was one of the smallest hurricanes we've ever observed. But of course, it made landfall as a Category 5, which is very rare. So no, size and intensity are not related. Okay, next slide. This is the big line that we're trying to get out to everybody, is there's more to the story than the category. Okay, let's go through these. This Saffir-Simpson rating scale, when you hear of a Category 1, Category 2 through 5, That only refers to the peak wind located somewhere in the storm. It's one number somewhere in the storm. Next. However, destructive winds exist far from that location in the rain bands, like I mentioned, and larger storms cover more areas. Next. This is a major point. Storm surge occurs hundreds of miles away from where the storm center makes landfall. And it's actually the part of hurricanes that kills the most people by a large fraction. In fact, half of all hurricane-related fatalities come from storm surge. Okay? Next one is related to rain, which is the number 2 most frequent cause of deaths in hurricanes. It's just rain. You don't even have to, you can be, again, 400 or 500 miles away from that point on the coastline where everyone focuses on where the hurricane's going to make landfall and still get 12, 24 inches of rain and, of course, flash flooding with that. Okay? And then another threat from landfalling hurricanes is tornadoes. And most landfalling hurricanes do spawn tornadoes. So that's another risk to watch out for. And they often come, and they're in those outer bands, and they come with little to no warning because those rain bands are just zipping around, and they're very hard to anticipate. Okay? So this is kind of the message from this, is we need to move beyond it's only a Category 1 sort of thinking that you almost always hear. It's nothing to worry about. Well, there have been plenty of examples in recent years where Category 1 hurricanes have killed more than Category 3 or 4s have, mostly because of storm surge and rain. I have one here that the wind, which is what everyone thinks of with hurricanes, is only responsible for 8% of fatalities in hurricanes. So that's kind of why there's the big phrase up top. There's more to the story than the category. Okay. And I'm going to spend a few slides on this because this is a very frequently misinterpreted thing that we always will see on the news and the internet, wherever you're looking. When a hurricane is anywhere in the Atlantic, the National Hurricane Center issues a 5-day forecast, and with that comes a cone, and it's the cone of uncertainty, what it's called, because it's meant to depict that there is uncertainty in where the storm will track. Currently, we use the same size cone all season long for all storms, which is not ideal because there really is greater uncertainty in some cases than others, but right now that's not, it's in the works. Let's say maybe in 2 years, if you're hearing about this, you'll see a cone that's dependent on the exact storm and the situation, but as of now, that's not the case. Of course, not only is a storm larger than the center, but the impacts extend far beyond the center. So the forecast cone is not an impacts cone. When you see that, that means, actually, let's go to the next slide. I'll talk more about what it means. So understanding the cone. The cone that you see coming up in 2014 will be using all of the official errors that the National Hurricane Center had over the last 5 seasons. So they use their own errors to create the cone. And it's meant to include 2/3 of the error at that forecast time. So a 1-day forecast has this much error, a 2-day forecast has a little more error, and so on. So the cone grows at a longer forecast times because uncertainty increases at longer times. So let's go through here. You see the little hurricane there on the left. And then if you hit the next, in 1 day, let's say that's where the location is forecast to be with a circle of uncertainty at that time. And then let's go to the next time. In 2 days, the forecast point is there, but the uncertainty is that circle, which covers more. And then next one, the cone just is a result of connecting those forecast circles. Okay? So here's an example. Like I said, the cone is made from the errors. It's meant to enclose 2/3 of the errors over the last 5 years. It's a little tricky, but so this is what a typical cone would look like. This was actually from 2 years ago, but so that's what the 2/3 cone looks like. But let's just say the cone was designed to include 95% of the errors over the last 5 years. So if you click there, that's what the 95% cone looks like. And that's saying that the storm the point at the middle of the storm has a 95% chance of tracking somewhere within that 95% cone if we use that one. So in 5 days, there's still a 95% chance that it'll be out here. Well, that means the impacts are going to be, here, even though northern Florida is also still in the 95% 5-day cone. So there's definitely uncertainty. Okay, next. Switching gears a little, this is just the history of landfall of hurricanes that have affected South Florida, to kind of give us a larger perspective on what to expect and when. So this is 6 months, and I drew a circle around South Florida here, and I picked this circle intentionally that size because if a hurricane passes within that circle, the odds are really good that we will feel its impacts. It doesn't have to hit Miami-Dade County or Biscayne Park to affect us. So first point is it's actually a half and half thing. We tend to always think of hurricanes that affect us as coming from the east, but half of all hurricanes that have affected us have come from the west and half from the east. June through November is hurricane season. August, September, October is kind of the core of hurricane season where most of the action is packed in. But the peak month here is October, which this middle right panel is all the hurricanes that have affected us in October, which is more than any other month. And then the average return period, if you use just those numbers, for any hurricane is one hurricane every 2.8 years, or a major hurricane is considered a category 3, 4, 5. The average there is 5.2. Now, of course, nature doesn't work on averages. You can have 3 in 1 year and go 8 years without one, that sort of thing. Like we're in one of those long periods now without one. But 2004 and 5 were packed with them. So anyway, that's just an average. Okay. I whipped this up just to show how the landfalls are not evenly spread out in time. Now this is landfalls only on Miami-Dade County and immediate surrounding areas. So the circle's quite a bit smaller than that last map showed. And so we go back by year from 1851 through 2013. And the red and blue lines are hurricanes that have struck Miami-Dade. Blues are the category 1 and 2 hurricanes, and reds are category 3 plus hurricanes. You can kind of see a big cluster in these years and kind of sparse recently and kind of sparse back here. And then the orange line is how many people live in the county. And there's been a whole lot of people who have moved to the county and have never experienced a hurricane. So kind of an interesting way to look at that. Okay, thanks. And then seasonal forecast, speaking of activity, this is, I went through and rounded up about, I don't know, what is this, eight groups that make seasonal forecasts. The original one is from CSU. They started doing this 31 years ago. And other groups have since they've seen that it has some skill, they've started doing it too. So there's 8 groups here. Basically the big picture is I just did an average. They come out to average of 10.2 tropical storms, 4.7. You can say you can't have a 0.2 of a hurricane, or 0.7. So if we say 10, 4, and 1 for tropical storms, hurricanes, and intense hurricanes, and then the average is, the long-term average is 12, 6, and 2, let's say. So about 80% of an average season. Okay? But it only takes one. That's another key takeaway point here. Regardless of how active the season is, any number of the storms that form could affect land. If there's only 2 hurricanes, there's absolutely nothing to say that both of them don't hit South Florida. That's not related to seasonal activity. I have some years here that if we use history as a tool, we can kind of say those 5 years look a lot like what this year does in terms of large-scale environment. Those 5 years, the hurricanes during those 5 years I plotted here. And you can see those years were very kind to us in Florida, but they weren't very kind to some other places. There were some very intense landfalls elsewhere. So, I just Is that luck, or maybe it is a good sign that years like this favor South Florida? Okay, so just to wrap up, go ahead. Hurricanes are large storm systems that bring storm surge, inland flooding, destructive winds, and tornadoes across hundreds of miles. So don't just focus on where the center is going and what category it is. There's a lot of other ingredients. Hurricane season is June through November, but October is when we're at the most risk. And this season is expected to be well below average in terms of overall activity, but it only takes one. A seasonal forecast is not a landfall forecast. And a couple examples here, 1992, of course. If you've lived here certainly since then, but you've probably heard stories. 92 was Hurricane Andrew, one of 3 Category 5 hurricanes that have ever hit the U.S., but that was a quiet season. 2010 through 2012 were very active seasons, and you probably wonder, I don't even remember them. Well, they didn't have any landfalls here, but they were active. So you can have it in a quiet season, but have a key landfall that makes a mess. And that's it. Thank you.
Good job.
Candido, did you want to speak on that issue, or?
I'm going to follow up on hurricane preparedness
Okay,
from the
perfect.
village point of view. Good evening, residents, mayor, commissioners, staff. My name is Candido Sosa Cruz. I'm the assistant to the village manager and public services director. I'm going to do a short presentation on hurricane preparedness from a resident's point and also from the staff, what we do prior to a hurricane and after hurricane. This first slide is to announce our next quarterly pickup. It's our next special Saturday yard debris pickup. It's going to be Saturday, June 21st. This gives the residents an opportunity to trim back trees, prune trees, and mitigate some of the storm damage from hurricanes. This is usually one of our largest, or it is the largest debris pickup, yard debris pickup for the village. This is the time when residents prepare for hurricane season, again, to start trimming and pruning their tree canopy. Disaster preparedness. Hurricane season starts from June 1st through November 30th. This slide focuses on your pets. Whatever plans you make for yourself, remember to include your pets. If you're going to ride out the storm in the home of a family member, friend, or neighbor, take your pets with you. There are currently 2 centers that accept pets during emergency. That's the E. Darwin Fox Pavilion and Dr. Michael M. Kropp Senior High School. Your pets do have to be registered with Miami-Dade Animal Services prior to going to these 2 centers. I've provided the address and telephone number. Again, these slides will also be on the village's website in case anyone needs any information, and we'll be able to print out copies of this information. This slide here is a disaster preparedness animal supplies checklist. Again, it gives you some basic information on what to have on hand in case of a hurricane for your pets. This next slide lists which hurricane evacuation centers are the ones nearest to the village and the ones that residents should go to in case of an emergency. Dr. Michael Kropp Senior High School, North Miami Senior High School, North Miami Beach Senior High School, Highland Oaks Middle School, and Miami Central Senior High School. Not every site will be open for every evacuation. The best telephone number to call is 311, which is Miami-Dade County's emergency or information telephone number. Pre-storm preparation. This is some information on what staff, the administration, and the different departments do prior to a storm. For instance, the police department will be identifying residents that might need assistance in case of an emergency. If any resident knows of anyone that will need assistance, or if anyone that needs special assistance, the police department is the correct department to notify. And specifically, Tommy Harrison, the Outreach Community Center. Tommy, if you could stand up, please. Thank you. Again, our Public Works Department will ensure that all fuel tanks, emergency response vehicles, and emergency equipment is fueled. They'll make sure that emergency equipment such as chainsaws, flashlights, the front-end loader tractor, first aid kits are on hand. They'll make sure the generators are working. They'll put up the shutters at Village Hall and at the Recreation Center. Also, the Ed Burke Recreation Center is the base of operations before, during, and after a storm for essential personnel. Staff, Public Works and the roads and median staff will also ensure that no potential flying debris is throughout the village. Staff will also make sure that that there's a backup of the village server and all electrical equipment is unplugged from outlets. I will be contacting Grubbs Emergency Services prior to a storm to make sure they're on standby, again, prior to a storm. Grubbs Emergency Services is an emergency services and disaster recovery firm specializing in emergency responses for storm-ravaged communities. Grubb Emergency Services is a national debris management company headquartered here in Florida, and the village does have an agreement with Grubbs Emergency Services for any kind of disaster, hurricane, for debris pickup and removal. Post-storm. As soon as possible after severe weather conditions subside, all employees will return back to work. Staff will commence clearing roads of any debris, and the Recreation Center will continue to be the base of operations after the storm. If needed, staff will connect generators for Village Hall and Recreation Center, and they will contact utility providers for any fallen lines or damaged lines. And again, if needed, staff will contact Grubbs Emergency Services to implement the debris removal program. This is very important here. Point of distribution, POD, for village residents. In case of an emergency, water and emergency supplies will be supplied to the village by the county. The point of distribution will be at the gravel parking lot by the police trailer. Again, the county will deliver water and emergency supplies to the village, or the village will coordinate those supplies to be delivered to the village, and the village staff will distribute the supplies to residents at the parking lot by the police trailer. Again, 311 will be the county's rumor control hotline in case anyone has any questions, and the county's website will become the Emergency Operations Center's main webpage. All press releases will be available on this webpage, such as school closure, school openings, will be posted on the county's website. This next slide talks about the Hurricane Preparedness Sales Tax Holiday that goes from May 31st through June 8th. If you could scroll up, Maria. And then it gives examples of what qualifying items could be, you could take advantage of for this tax holiday. Again, this will be on the website, and if you need copies, we'll be happy to print it out for you at Village Hall. Also on the village website, under Hurricane Season 2014, we have links. We have links to the Disaster Supply Kit. We have links for a page that discusses Disaster Supply Kit. We have links to Miami-Dade County Hurricane website, the National Hurricane Center website, Emergency Evacuation Assistance Program for Special Needs. We have a link for Animal Services. We have a link to the FP&L Storm Center. And we also have a link to that takes you to a list of gas stations and grocery stores that will be working with generators in case of a hurricane or a disaster. That concludes my presentation, and if anyone has any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, Candido. Any questions from the commission? All right. All right, let's move on to item 4B, the code review board recommendation on roofing materials. So the board chairman, Gage Hartong.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, staff, and fellow residents. Back in September of last year, the commission requested of the Code Review Board to review and solicit community input on roofing materials to analyze options and to present recommendations back to the board. We've done a lot of work, and we've come back with some recommendations, and I do believe you have a copy of what, and it's up here too. So when we first met to go over this, we decided to come up with 5 points that we felt were important points to help us guide us in this this review. They were safety, aesthetics, type of metal or other materials and styles, roofing, what our neighboring cities' codes said, and we'll also get community input. By sticking to these, it helped guide us through our work. The first people that we spoke to were roofing professionals. So we spoke to actual representatives from manufacturers and also representatives of from people that are roofing, that own roofing companies. Mainly we focused at first on metal roofs, which were really the topic that everyone was interested in. We looked at what type of metal roofs there are. There are standing seam. There are lesser ones, which are like tin. There's metal shingles. There's metal roofs that are shaped like barrel tiles. We looked at each one of them, and we got input from these professionals. The ones that are really recommended and were kind of the most used are the standing seam metal roofs. That's what is the most used here in Miami-Dade and South Florida. Barrel tile roofs are really not used, even though they are a product approved by Miami-Dade County. We were only able to get one example of a barrel tile metal roof, and that was actually Baptist Hospital. We asked many people for locations of homes or such that had the barrel tile metal roofs, and we weren't able to locate any. Other roofing materials that were brought up, there really is not a lot out there that is being offered. The one thing is they are starting to offer recycled rubber roof tiles from like rubber tires and such, even though it's something that's not widely done yet here in Miami-Dade County, but it is something that's coming up, and if one day we want to look at that, that's something we can look at, but because of the fact that it's not currently really widely used, we decided not to pursue, looking at that as a material. Again, it could always be brought up at a later date. After that first meeting, we took a look at all the codes of the village, the communities around us. Miami Shores now allows metal roofs. The city of Miami Beach now allows metal roofs, and Coral Gables tried to pass metal roofs, but I believe it did not pass, but they did have language written up that we were able to look at and see what they had actually proposed themselves. Pretty much all of the other communities around us, they limited the type of structure that a metal roof could be on. Even they do allow it, but they would they tried to shy away from like Spanish style homes or homes that they felt were not an appropriate use for a metal roof. These other communities also control the type of color that can be done, the architecturally compatible with the areas. These are pretty much all, sorry. These were all pretty much like high points that we found in each one of the codes. Pretty much Coral Gables has an architectural review board. Miami Beach has a planning board that decides it, and Miami Shores, their planning and zoning board actually reviews each one. Miami Beach and Miami Shores both do not allow metal roofs that are in the shape of barrel tiles. They actually specifically exclude it. So that was something that we also took into consideration on our decision on that. The next meeting that we had is we invited architects to come and speak to us about the metal roofs. We had testimony from 3 different architects regarding it. Basically, it was decided that it is a better maintenance, a metal roof. It is easier to clean. And actually, if I can go back to the professionals, one of the things that they dispelled was the myth that, or the notion that metal roofs are less expensive than barrel tile or concrete or clay tiles. The testimony that we received was that metal roofs are in fact more expensive, so they do not actually cheapen the look or such with using an inferior material. That was the testimony that we received. As far as going back to the architects all pretty much stressed the point of the appropriate structure. We started seeing it, the terminology about the pitch of the roofs, the overhangs of the roofs, that metal roofs look better on higher pitched roofs with larger overhangs. Pretty much all three of them actually testified to that. Again, trying to maintain the aesthetics and the appropriateness to the structure. The next meeting we had, we discussed, we invited realtors to come in and discuss if there was going to be any negative impact to the village regarding the acceptance of metal roofs. Basically, we had four different realtors speak to us. Again, their main thing was not to cheapen our roofing code. I mean, if we're going to allow metal roofs, then we need to require the finer metal roofs, the ones that have the factory finishes, the ones that will maintain our values. They basically felt that it's again, it's a good material, but again, it needs to be on something. We need to maintain the strength of our roofing code to help in turn maintain the property values and keeping the property values up. Use higher quality metal roofing, not the low quality ones, which is something that we did not consider. The next meeting we had, we did discuss alternative roofing materials. Again, rubber recycled tires came up, but it is not. I'm sorry, it is not Dade County certified yet, but it is something that is out there. There are different types of glue down membranes, which that kind of look like metal seam. Again, not something that we saw a wide distribution on. And also PVC roofing is coming around, but again, not something that's not even really here in Dade County. So we were trying to stay focused on things that were, that we could actually use here in Dade County. Then we had two public workshops, which were both attended by 10 to 12 residents. The general mood of the workshops were. It's a good idea. It depends on the structure. A lot of comments of like the idea, but it depends on the style of the building. Not a lot of negative commentary as far as people really not wanting them. It was more a lot of comments on the type of structure and making sure that it's on an appropriate structure. So, but that was both public meetings that we had. Then we finally sat down and, as a board, started discussing all the different input that we've received, and basically we came to the fact that we would be open to considering metal roofs, a standing Steve metal roof, not a barrel tiles type of metal roof. That the pitch was very important, as well as the overhangs, and as well as the color and the type of structure that it can be on. So we accepted those guidelines, and what we did is we looked at the existing code as it is, and we edited it and rearranged it a little bit, and what we also did is we took wording from each one of the other cities' codes that we felt were relevant to us, and we pulled them in too. So some of the stuff that you see there is directly pulled out of Miami Shores, and then tweaked for Biscayne Park, and then some of the stuff that's there is, from Miami Beach. We kind of took the best of everything that we liked, that we felt would be appropriate for what we were trying to do. In the end, this is what we came up with. The acceptance of metal standing seam roofs with pitch requirements. You would not be able to put them on a roof with lower than a 3 by 12 pitch. We just felt that would be too low aesthetically. As the roof goes higher, as far as the pitch goes, the overhangs can come in, but we do felt that the combination of the two are very important. And one thing that we did do too is we did take photographs of houses in the area. We went down in the Morningside, we went down to Belmead, and looked at a lot of houses that have metal roofs. And the general theme really is the combination of pitch and overhang. So as the testimony that we had from the architects, it kind of reinforced it by what we were seeing by just going out and physically looking around at our neighboring communities. So, so as you have in front of you, this is our recommendation, is basically to now accept metal roofs. They would be limited to standing seams, shall not include Spanish S-tile. So the structures should be constructed of a high modern, postmodern ranch or Key West architectural style or the variation thereof. The colors would be limited to silver, gray, brown, copper, and white, and shall not be bright or highly reflective, and must be harmonious with the exterior color of the building. The roof pitches, again, from 3 to 12 up to 4 to 12, you would have to have an 18-inch overhang with a 6-inch fascia, if you go down to number 5, Maria. And then for roofs above 4 foot per 12, you would be able to do it with a 12-inch overhang and maintaining the 6-inch fascia. Roofs with pitch less than 3 inches per foot would be prohibited. We also maintained in here that asphalt shingles and wood may be re-roofed on existing houses that have it already with an engineer's evaluation because of the weight. And pretty much that's it.
Okay. Gage, thank you so much. I know this board worked very hard, many long hours. I want to recognize other board members that are present. Gary, if you can stand, and any other board members that are here. But they worked many hours in drafting not only this section of the code, but many others, and so I just want to thank them for that. And I think you did an excellent job. So what I would like to see is that this come back as an ordinance. Have the attorney put it into an ordinance form, and then we can have a substantive discussion about anything that we want to see changed, unless you want to have that discussion now. Have it in an ordinance and then have it come back.
Well, how about if we talk about it when we reach the point in the agenda for the next meeting?
Okay, but that's fine. But any reason not to just have the city attorney start to prepare an ordinance so that we can
Just
put
to take a pulse of the commission and see if there's,
Okay.
a majority of us want to move forward with it?
Okay, so we'll put it on the next agenda as a
No,
discussion.
I'm saying, when we get to the point in this meeting that we talk about what we're going to put onto the next, onto
Okay,
the July
that's fine.
meeting?
That's fine.
Okay.
Is that Commissioner Watts?
Question for
Sure.
Gage. Is that all right?
Sure.
Hi, Gage. Thanks.
Hi.
We've been playing telephone tag the last few weeks. I wanted to also thank you and the other members of the committee for doing all this work. And it seems to me that your stipulations here are carefully strongly worded so that it would preclude good majority of the houses in the park from having metal roofs, it seems.
I don't think I really agree with that. I mean,
No,
if
okay,
you,
that's what I wanted.
one of the, there are a number of houses, and my own house is personally one of them that does not have overhangs. I would not be allowed to do it under the code, but I would if I wanted to go ahead and extend my roof out. If you're going to take your roof off, and if I wanted to add 12 inches to my overhang, I could. But architecturally, if you do drive around the park, you'll notice that a good number of the houses in the park do have overhangs, and the appropriate pitch. So there are some that do not, that would not under this, but but they are open to it if you were able to make the necessary architectural changes.
And was there consensus on the committee about that? Of the issue?
Yeah, the committee worked through this, and we voted 5-0. Everybody voted for it.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Ross?
Yeah, I just also wanted to congratulate the committee and thank you for, obviously you made a study of metal roofs and were very careful and took in a lot of testimony to guide how you frame the proposal. So I really do appreciate that. My other thought about having the commission just discuss this briefly towards the end of the meeting is that we can then take also public comment and get those impressions before we move forward with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'm very grateful to you and the code review committee for this. This was not easy. It took a tremendous amount of time. You all were immensely careful about it. And I think that the balance between what's best for the neighborhood and what is respectful of what individual homeowners want essentially is perfect. And I'm just very grateful to all of you.
You're welcome. We tried. That was our thing, is to come to a solution that would be able to meet the needs of residents that are requesting it, and then also meet the concerns of residents that feel that it might not be appropriate for the village.
I know this was a long, long process, and I think you've involved the public over this long process as much as you can. You've invited them many a times, and I think the public sees what you have done and appreciates what you have done and supports what you're doing. And I think it's a good way of starting, changing our type of roofing material or allowing it. And this is a good step forward. And we'll see how it works out over a period of years, and then it can always be tweaked. Because I'm still in favor of sometime in the future of having something that mimics from the street looking like tile. And since the industry really isn't using it down here right now, there's nothing to really look at, like you said, except for Baptist Hospital. But maybe sometime in the future, when they redesign it, so for whatever reason, that they're not using it, it starts to get used, we can look at it again. But I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you, Gage.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item 4C. Representative Daphne Campbell was supposed to be here this evening, but she unfortunately couldn't make it. So I will announce the good news. Some of you may have already heard through an email blast, but after a lot of hard work, many hours of advocating on behalf of the village, lobbying our government up in Tallahassee, the governor signed the budget, and included within the budget was $1 million for the village of Biscayne Park. So we received $1 million. The money is apt to be allocated for restoration and repair of our log cabin, our historic log cabin, and also to build a modest annex building to house our administration next to the log cabin. The goal is to restore the log cabin back to its original purpose, which is to hold meetings such as this. And so we're excited. We're happy, obviously, with the news, and so we look forward to moving this project forward. I want to thank the manager and staff and Commissioner Ross. Both Commissioner Ross and I traveled to Tallahassee to lobby. I want to thank our representative, Daphne Campbell, Senator Miguel Diaz de la Portilla, who, although the village is not in his district, he really took this on his back and pushed this hard and advocated for our historic village. So it was truly a team effort, and we worked hard to get it done. Any other comments from the commission?
I just want to express my thanks to Representative Campbell, who I met as a freshman representative in 2011. And no sooner did she reach Tallahassee than she took this project on as one of her priorities. And without her help, we certainly wouldn't be where we are today. There were many people involved in making it happen. our prior manager, Anna Garcia, our lobbyist, Dave Caserta, our current manager, Heidi, and I think that, Mayor, when you came on to that team, that was like the strength that we needed to get it over and get it done. Also want to put out a thanks to Commissioner Sally Hayman and other people who wrote letters in support of our initiative, as well as Kelly Millette and her boss, Ron Book, who over the years lent us the resources of their office in Tallahassee. And there are numerous other people that I hope I'm not forgetting, but I know I will be. Thank you all for helping us get it done.
Commissioner Anderson?
Is this something there still has to be appropriated, the money for the legislature?
No.
Or is this something that, we can start?
Yeah, it's final.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
The budget was signed yesterday. Yeah. So
Right,
it's-
I know the budget was signed, but sometimes the budget may be signed, but the money still has to be appropriated.
No.
Okay.
It was part of House Bill 5001, which was an appropriations bill.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Because sometimes there's always a little,
Yeah.
that little loophole.
Yeah, it was part of the appropriations
Okay.
bill.
Thank
We're
you.
good.
I'd like to say something.
Commissioner Watts?
Yeah. Oh, I'm delighted with this news. I think everyone should be applauded who worked on this project. I mean, we should be just clapping our hands and popping champagne bottles now. And I just wanted to thank, in addition to the staff and the Village Commission, the former Village Commission that in 2012 passed a resolution making it a priority to find funds for the restoration of the cabin. And also I wanted to thank Henry Larries, who is a former architect with Architectonica, who is now a professor at Miami-Dade College, who wrote and has just stepped down from the Miami Beach Preservation Board, who wrote an eloquent letter on behalf of the cause. It was included in the file, and I never got around to thanking him, so I just wanted that on the record.
Thank you. All right, so let's move on to item 4D. We have a proclamation for June Dairymen. I'd like to read the proclamation into the record. Unfortunately, June couldn't be here this evening. She was not feeling well. But whereas June Dairyman was born in Pennsylvania on June 6, 1922, which later, after 1944, the date coincidentally became known as D-Day. And whereas from Pennsylvania, June moved to New Jersey and then later to South Florida, specifically the village of Biscayne Park, where she has lived since 1970. June worked as a bank teller and in 1983 became an active member of the Church of the Resurrection, volunteering for religious weekends, Bible studies, fundraising, and altar guilds. Whereas from 2006 to 2009, June was a senior warden at the Church of the Resurrection, where church members described her as always being gracious, friendly, and kind, always welcoming visitors and making them feel important with one of her favorite responses, "Bless your heart." Whereas this month, June will be vacating her position as office administrator for the church, but will remain as treasurer for Lydia chapters. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the staff and the residents of Biscayne Park, this commission wishes to honor June Dairyman for her commitment to her church and as a longtime resident of the village of Biscayne Park. We hereby proclaim June 6, 2014, D-Day, to be recognized as June Dairyman Day in the village of Biscayne Park. Is there anyone?
Our recreation director, Issa Thornell, is going to deliver it to her tomorrow, so
Excellent.
he'll take it. Thank you, Issa.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, our second proclamation is to, let's see, it's Code Enforcement Appreciation Week, June 2nd to June 6th. I'm not going to read the whole proclamation, but Reggie, our code officer, has done an outstanding job since coming on board, and I'd like to recognize him specifically. And I know this administration is really trying to focus on code enforcement so that we can elevate all of our property values, and he's certainly done a great job in organizing and getting getting feet on the ground to really bring people into compliance without strongholding. And so Reggie has a great personality, and he's has done an excellent job. So I'd like to say, I, David Coviello, Mayor of the Village of Biscayne Park, do hereby recognize the week of June 7th through June 6th, 2014 as Code Enforcement Appreciation Week, and further extend appreciation to our Code Compliance Officer, Reginald White, and to all code enforcement officers for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Thanks, Kim. All right, let's move on to additions, deletions, or withdrawals on the agenda. Any from the commission? Okay. Commissioner Ross.
I have a couple of items for discussion towards the end of the agenda
Okay.
that I'm not quite ready to address, so I'd like to defer those.
Okay, so we're going to remove which items?
This is
Under 11?
under new business 11.
Old business?
That'd be 11B.
11B is removed.
I think that leaves one item remaining with my name on it. Yeah.
Mhm.
11E,
That's the only one.
correct. Okay. Any other? None?
Mayor, from the staff, I'd like to request from the commission to do something kind of out of the ordinary, and that's beginning on this agenda and every agenda going forward for the next few months, add an update regarding the transition of sanitation services at the end of public comment, so it's at the beginning of the meeting as opposed to at the end with village manager's report.
Okay.
That will give us an opportunity to update the community of the transition as we go through it.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. There's
Thank you.
typically more residents at the beginning of the meetings.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Any others? Okay. I'd just like to, before we begin the public comment, John, I'd like you to read the statement regarding decorum, but in a minute. But I met with a number of residents last evening to discuss, there's been apparently a movement to ask us to rescind the sanitation ordinance. And I met with them, listened to them, and I went back and reviewed everything again. I reviewed not only the substantive issues, but also the notices that were put out to make sure that people were aware of this issue. And before we take public comment, I just wanted to gauge on the commission whether there are any commissioners that voted for outsourcing, whether they are willing to rescind.
I am committed to the decision we made in May.
Okay.
I've not been provided with a compelling reason to rescind my vote.
Okay. And I've also, again, looked at all the information, and it's a difficult decision, but I think it's in the best interest of the community to outsource the sanitation, so my decision also will stand. Okay. John, if you can read in that statement.
Sure, Mayor. All comments must be addressed to the Commission as a body and not to individuals. Any person making impertinent or slanderous remarks or become boisterous while addressing the Commission shall be barred from further audience before the Commission by the presiding officer, unless permission to continue or again address the Commission is granted by the majority vote of the Commission members present. No clapping, applauding, heckling, or verbal outbursts in support or in opposition to a speaker or his or her remarks shall be permitted. No signs or placards shall be allowed in the Commission chambers. Please mute or turn off your cell phone or pager at the start of the meeting. Failure to do so may result in being barred from the meeting. Persons that exit the chamber shall do so quietly.
Okay, thank you. All right, so public comments, we'll have 3 minutes each. If you can state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elena. I think many of you already know me. It's been very difficult for us and many of the citizens here within Biscayne Park to understand the decision that the commissioners and the mayor has made. I understand the recommendation we understand as myself, we understand the recommendation made by the city manager, but we still feel it's totally unfair. As of Saturday, we started a new movement again, and we got thus far 318 signatures, and we didn't cover all of the park. We're wearing this blue ribbon because we're trying to tell you guys, listen, solidarity, and it's not about the numbers. It's about how we feel about our public works. These guys have been here with us for 25 years, some of them. They're not young guys. They're not going to get a job, even if Pro Waste has promised to take them on. We don't know how long it will last. The point is that this decision was made in less than 2 months. We were not informed about it, and I think this is where we're really upset about it. We were not part of the decision. So what's the purpose of us voting you guys in if you're not listening to us? You're not listening to our voice. We need you to listen to our voice, please. Stephen can be here tonight. He's a great spokesperson. I am not. But he can't be here because he's taking care of his son. He's being kind. We need you guys to be humane. Think about these guys. Think about what we want and make the right decision. And thank you very much, and I hope I haven't been too eloquent in my expression.
Thank you. Could you please refrain from clapping? Thanks.
You guys, excuse me, my name is Dan Rodriguez, 890 Northeast 113th Street. Number one, I don't think it's fair about when you do something that you put your whole heart, full effort into. You went to Tallahassee with that effort, and you clapped and wanted to celebrate. I think by gagging, saying that we can't clap about what somebody just said, I think that's not fair. Just how you feel about things, we feel about things, okay? And Mr. Jonas, you said that you have not been furnished with anything compelling. Well, my son said something to me last night. He said, Dad, how many more signed petitions do you guys need? How many more numbers? You got more than 300. You got more than 271 the second time around. I personally got within 2 hours over 35. And I did that with my hernia, double hernia, which got even worse. My son said to me, well, if that doesn't work, we learned something in civics. How about a recall? How about just recalling the people that you elected? And I went, wow, I never thought of that. You know, if you don't listen to us, Mr. Jonas, we'll recall everybody that we can. Now, everybody that's here in the commission, I've always said to you what a good job you're doing. And Mr. Mayor, you're doing a great job. You went up to Tallahassee, you got $1 million, but you're not listening to us. I don't know what else to tell you guys. Everybody has always said that they just heard about it. All we're asking, you put a vote for the side of the tennis court to be painted, and now you put out to the public vote. Why can you not put out to the public vote this that's so important to us? Why can't we exercise freedom? It seems more like autocracy here, more like, you know, like a condo association, condo commandos. I hate to tell you this, Roxanne, but you're acting more like condo commandos, all, you know, most of you. By putting a vote at the last moment when the other two or the other three have already voted, and you're going against it, that's not a vote. The vote should be blind, by the way. So neither one of you know what you're voting. That's democracy. And all I want you to do is to listen to the people, Mr. Jonas. Because if you don't, please don't ask me to put your sign up for re-election. Mr. Carvalho, please don't ask me that. I refrain from anybody. I usually participated. But the way that you guys conducted your last political, it was bigger. And that's why I didn't even allow anybody to put anything. So what you're doing is you're disenchanting us in our trust in your positions. Okay?
Thank you.
Dan Samaria, 1030 Northeast, 121st Street. For the record, I'm the publisher of Gold Coast Chronicle, and I'm doing stories on this and other subject matters in Biscayne Park. But today I'm speaking as a resident of Biscayne Park. The village is not doing justice to their residents by not doing their complete homework on Waste Pro. Did you speak to other cities about West Pro? One city I don't know if you spoke to, was North Miami. They're right on the border of us. Did you know that they're trying to get out of this contract? Did you know that their code enforcement has cited West Pro many times for the way their drivers drive on their streets? I feel there are so many errors in writing in the purpose of this ordinance. Because of this, I today seek legal action. And advice from my attorney, I will be filing a TRO, temporary restraining order, with the court. In the publishing of this ordinance, the motion maker is wrong. The second is wrong. The date that was needed was wrong. The commission was never clear and transparent in trying to get every single resident in Biscayne Park to participate. What the particulars in the impact to the residents, using funds from the enterprise fund and moving it to the general fund, in my opinion, is illegal and improper. There are at least 318 residents, which equals over 15% of the registered Biscayne Park residents. If the commission and administration did their homework, they would have known, I don't know if anybody checked with the Better Business Bureau, West Pro has an F rating. Is this someone that we want to represent the village of Biscayne Park? I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Good evening, Commissioner residents. My name is Tracy Trutman. I live at 791 Northeast 116th. For the record, I am not for outsourcing. I'll say it again. I am not for outsourcing. I'm here this evening for one major reason, and that is I get very disturbed when this becomes such political attacks on individuals with facts that are totally not correct. It bothers me to the point where I spent my Sunday combing through the records to see if I could understand why did we go to outsource in the first place, or why this conversation came up. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I just want to put the numbers out there. And one other thing, to the loyal staff who's been with us for anywhere from 13 to 28 years, you know how I feel about you because I've expressed it to each and every one of you personally. Well, at least almost everyone I got to. Number one, in-house sanitation. The cost increase will go from $572 to $755 if we go with option D. That would bring everybody, which I think we should have done years ago, to a livable wage. Okay. It also includes replacing both trucks, which are 10 to 13 years old, which we currently spend about 20 grand a year to repair, if there's any metal left on them. The issue of replacing both trucks, a professional public waste manager for the city of Fort Lauderdale, Greg Swale, was contracted to review our in-house shop to figure out how to keep it in-house with better efficiencies. He reviewed the maintenance cost and physically inspected the trucks and equipment and concluded we needed 2 trucks, not 1. He also confirmed the number of days the truck would need to run be 4 days with 3 trucks, 2 new and 1 old. He also stated that we needed 8 employees, driver and laborers, for sanitation only, 11 employees with public works and roads, and the cost was be $755. That was for option D, giving our guys a livable wage. The in-house budget includes a 16% health care increase cost based upon our actual renewal rate and not the 25% that was originally estimated because we didn't get our quote in yet. So the $755 is with the 16%. If any of the 8 sanitation staff are absent, which does happen, then other employees must cover them from the roads, from public works and roads, and that's built in the administrative costs along with administrative staff. Payroll must do time cards, finance must do their bills. This is how government budgets are structured, whether we like it or not. We always do this, partition it out. Okay. There's an average saving of, if we look outsourced to Waste Pro, as I said, I am not for outsourcing. I'll say it again. Outsourced to Waste Pro. There's an average saving of over 5 years of the contract for each household, a guaranteed amount of around $1,500 to $2,000. It came out to, I think, $1,526, roughly. That's with a maximum annual increase every year of 5%, which is not how it's done. It's done by the Consumer Price Index, which currently is at like 2.5%, so it may not be quite as high as that, okay? Garbage pickup is the same. Either they'll bring it out, keep it in your side yard or your own container. They have, I think, a 40-gallon max. No change if you want it in your side yard. You'll need to register with the village or not. I think there was a change in that. They'll tell you how to do it, but basically you can have it, keep it the same as it always has been, except the pickups will be twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays for everyone. Trash pickup remains exactly the same. The 4 quarterly Saturday pickups, yay. You can put it in a pile, receptacle, bags, any way you want it out on the curb as you've always done. That will be on once a week on Tuesdays. Recycling will be changed, the bin only. You'll provide a 35 or 65-gallon rolling cart with the lid. That's part of the initial cost increases of the first year is the $40 in the bin. Okay. And that's once a week on Fridays. Trucks will be in our village 2 days a week versus the 4. And I'm a Go Green person, so I'm hoping they'll go to natural gas in 2017 if we have Waste Pro. Steve discussed the Waste Pro's bidding being artificially low. However, it should be noted that SWS proposal was less than Waste Pro. That's how government agencies work. It's an RFP, straight request for proposal. Our loyal staff. We currently have 9 employees for sanitation work, public works, and roads. Out of 9, we are retaining 5 of the public works and roads currently. I have other proposals to keep the rest of our men, which I will bring up in the next meeting, not in this one.
Hey, Tracy. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. I apologize. I'll just close up with saying that I'm disturbed by the fact that the misinformation out there is causing everybody to get very upset about things that are not real, when there are things that are very real, which is our guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy.
Hello. Sandor Shirt, live at 955 Northeast 118th Street. So I just wanted to quickly share my feelings on this. I received a petition, which was the way that I found out that this was going on, which is probably more my issue than the fact that than anything else. I don't normally come to these meetings. And in reviewing the petition, and then I reviewed the contract, and I reviewed the documents, and there was a number of things that just me as a layperson, I'm not a lawyer, I saw that were, I would say, could be improved in the way the agreements were done, or were surprising to me. So I started to look more into this issue. You know, I saw that there were no more pickups in alleys, which I think is something that one of the attributes of Biscayne Park, which is great, is that we have the alleys and that we use them for garbage collection. And then more specifically to the agreement, there was no termination for convenience for the village's benefit, no poison pill clause in terms of, like, if these guys commit negligence, that they can literally just be terminated right away. There's a cure period for breach, which, you know, honestly, if one of these people does something that's negligent, that's wrong, they should be able to get terminated right away, the company. And then I started thinking about the people that work for our sanitation department, and thought that I would speak to them and ask them what their thoughts were. They informed me, and this is just from driving down the street and seeing the truck and saying, hey, I want to talk about this, that this was something that they happened very quickly. They had never really seen it coming, and that within a very short period of time, to quote one of the men, he said he's never seen anything move so quickly through the village. For me, I think about these men, and I think about the fact that my relationship with these men is not because I know them as the people that are collecting my garbage. It's because some of these men are the same people that coach my children in football and in sports here at the park. I mean, these are people that have invested their lives in Biscayne Park. And the fact that I don't know them as the people that collect my garbage, but I know them as the people that take care of my children when they're at the park and they play intramural sports, to me that's one of the things that makes Biscayne Park really special as a place to live. And I have a real issue with thinking that guys that have worked here for 13, 15, 25 years are now going to go work for a private company. I already know how the story is going to end for them. And to think that these are men, they know the cars that I drive, they know the car in my driveway, they know when my wife is home, they know when my children are playing out front, and they're not just picking up our garbage. These are people that are part of our community, that drive our streets every day and help make Biscayne Park feel like a village. So then I say, okay, what is it going to cost me as a resident? Is it going to be another $100 a year, $150 a year? What is it going to be? $200 a year? What is that worth to me? Is it worth it to me to know that the same man who's been working in this village for the past 13, 15, 25 years, who knows the car that's in my driveway, who knows my neighbor by first name, is coming to the back of my house to pick up my garbage, and who's taking care of my children when they're at the park? Or is it going to be a private company who, at the end of the day, I mean, look, I'm in the private sector. I own a business, and I know what it's like dealing with my employees. There's a certain level of loyalty that you expect from your employees, and it's not equivalent to what I see these men doing every day and to the contributions that they're making to the village. And I think there's just a human element to this decision that I can't really wrap my arm around. So I say to myself, is it worth it to me to pay the extra $200 a year or whatever it is? Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. Now, I'm not saying that I'm right. All I'm saying is that for me, that's how I feel. And so I look at these types of services as core services. I look at like police. Would I want to outsource our police department? No. When I tell people at Biscayne Park, I'm very proud of the fact
You can just wrap it up, okay?
that we live in a village where we have our own police department. I'm very proud of the fact that we live in a village that has our own public works department. And I look at sanitation the same way. So I would just say that this is one of those things that if you're really going to make this decision and you really feel that strongly about it, maybe you want to put it to a public vote. There's a ballot coming up in November. Do it in a way where if I'm in the minority and we get rid of the sanitation, then so be it.
Thank you.
Sorry?
Can you wrap it up?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I understand. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Dan Keys. I guess I just want to say what I've said before, and that is over the 6 or 7 months that this was an issue on the commission level, I'm talking about outsourcing of solid waste, I felt that I had many opportunities to voice my opinion and have feedback with you all on the commission. I believe you all listened to me, and 3 of you believe the way that I believe, and 2 of you don't. And that is democracy. I think it's a good move, and I'll just go on from there. There are a couple things on the agenda tonight that I want to talk about. The item that's coming up regarding animals in parks. I know you're doing this specifically because there's one kind of dog-oriented event that you want to have in the park. I would just ask you to look at the ordinance to see whether or not wording can be tweaked a little bit, you know, to kind of limit it to that type of event. I for one would not want to see. I like dogs, but you know, I would not like to see you approve dogs being permitted at the Food and Tunes thing, for instance. I just don't think that's what your intent is by this ordinance, and I think that is why there's a countywide ordinance against having dogs in parks in general, and our ordinance as well, because dogs can bring problems when they're in association with people they don't know, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I just ask you to look and see if it speaks enough to the fact that A, the commission needs to approve a resolution to authorize a specific event, and you know, as a general thing, I wouldn't like to see it be done kind of willy-nilly at any village-sponsored event. Okay. The item on the roofs. A couple of questions about that, which I might think about. It would be interesting to me to know what percentage of the village is made up of homes that can be identified as high modern, post-war modern, ranch, Key West homes. Okay? I'm just thinking around, if I can decide what the definition of those things are, that seems to be about 98% of the village, except for the 2 or 3 Spanish type homes that have flat roofs on them. The rest of it kind of describes everything in the village. So, you know, with that in mind, well, I'll go to the second issue, that being the pitch issue, and the decision was made that the lower pitched roofs, okay, are not allowed to have a metal roof. I think that those roofs are the types that are possibly would benefit most from the quality of a standing seam metal roof, because some of those roofs were originally, the low-pitched roofs, very low-pitched roofs, were tar and gravel built-up roofs. And they've subsequently, for the most part, been replaced by shingle roofs. And, you know, since we're going to 98% of the properties, I wonder whether or not those low pitch roofs could be reconsidered as something that we could allow if you go forward with it at all. And my third comment regarding the roofs, where, in 50 years, when, some historian somewhere or some tourist comes to Miami and he wants to see what Miami's all about historically, what are they going to say about how we maintained our village from a historic visual standpoint in terms of the homes? Yeah, okay. That was the last comment I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Deborah Greco. I am the fairly new business representative for your wonderful sanitation employees, and I'm from Orlando. The first thing I would like to say this evening is how wonderful your residents are. I guess being from Orlando, I'm not used to seeing such an outpouring of goodwill and the care and the way that they feel about the employees here is just absolutely phenomenal. And I really want to thank each and every one of you for standing by these great gentlemen. It really means a lot. It really, from someone that comes from Orlando, you just don't see that. In looking over the contract, there were a few things that I noticed. I noticed that it is going to be effective October the 1st, and that your current employees will remain, should they choose to, on the job here until the 30th of September. I do know that you were trying to keep the other folks employed with Waste Pro. The agreement that you have is to try to have Waste Pro hire a minimum of 6 of the current sanitation employees, which I think is a great thing that you've included that in the contract. But at 35 hours a week, the guys would already be losing, that's 20 hours a month, 240 hours a year, plus the lower pay rate. That's very upsetting to me, and I know it would be very upsetting to them. And I have also yet to find one that is willing to go to Waste Pro, unless some of them have changed their mind since I was here last. I also found it interesting tonight that your presentation of the hurricane preparation. I certainly hope that you have a very light year this year and everything is very calm, because I think with Waste Pro in charge of picking up your debris and not having your current sanitation department, your village is really going to suffer this go-around should you have some severe hurricane damage. Also, I'd like to congratulate the village on your $1 million for your restoration of your log cabin. It's too bad you didn't lobby so hard to get a couple of slightly used sanitation trucks.
All right, good evening. My name is Rafael Trinche. I live at 11108 Northeast 11th Place. Okay, so the only reason I'm here is because of the sanitation issue. And I'm going to start off with, before I moved to Biscayne Park, I absolutely hated living in South Florida. I was all over the place. I was in North Miami Beach, North Miami, Miami Lakes, Hialeah, downtown Miami. And I moved to Biscayne Park, and I said, oh my God, I'm living in Mayberry, 15 minutes away from downtown and 15 minutes away from the beach. Awesome. Biscayne Park cops are the only cops that when I get pulled over by them, I don't get nervous. So I'm very happy to be living here, and it's because of that sense of community. I've never really developed a good relationship with neighbors until I started living here. That sense of community. Part of that is the way the employees who work for Biscayne Park treat us. So I don't want to see that get outsourced to a bunch of people who don't know me and who don't care, right? So then you add that to the fact that a lot of these guys, most of these guys have been working here decades, and they're losing their jobs because, I don't know, because somebody decided to save a couple of dollars. They didn't do anything to deserve losing their jobs. I've been in that situation, you know, and it feels like a betrayal. And you know something, they don't deserve it. So then the last thing, and I mean, I wasn't going to say this, but when I was standing back there and I was listening to, I don't have a compelling reason to change my vote, because you're not the one losing your job. If you were losing your job, you would find it very compelling. All right, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Noah Jacobs, 1090 Northeast 119th Street. If you'll give me just a couple minutes. Having some recent knowledge, I can tell you that commissions as a whole get one or two issues where they have to make a decision, and they either get the community to rally around them, or they start to lose the community. 70 people here, 10 helping staff, 15 maybe, 65 residents. Be very honest with you. I don't think I got 65 residents if you put 4 or 5 meetings together. And I can name the 10 or 12 that I got every month. Okay, I guess I'm kind of jealous. I'd love to see this kind of crowd, or have seen this kind of crowd, and maybe if I had, I'd still be up there. I very honestly, looking at all 5 of you and understanding how difficult, and it truly is difficult, these decisions are, would not trade places with a single one of you right now. Because they are difficult decisions that you have to make. I can guarantee there is not a single person in this room that would agree with everything I did for those 2 years. And I can guarantee that even those that I support wouldn't have agreed with everything I did for my 2 years, and I won't agree with what this commission does for 3 or 5 or 10. Very often there are going to be serious differences between what I would want for the village and what my representatives are going to do. The concern I have is when it comes over and over again, and you keep getting people to come out and tell you what they want or what they don't want, and it's resounding, it's not a close vote. This is not something that's splitting the village down the middle. It's not something necessarily where you have a large cadre on one side and a large cadre or cohort on the other. It is clear that the individuals that are taking part in the process want things to be a certain way. I had a current commissioner who was not a commissioner at the time tell me, a year and a half ago, that I shouldn't necessarily represent all those people that don't speak. If they're not coming out, they're not interested. If they're not coming out, they don't want to vote, they don't want to say, they don't care. That might be true. But let's pretend or presume that you have 15% of the village that's willing to stand up and be counted, and then you take the other 85% of the village, cut it in half. Still looking at 60% of the village, give or take, on one side of the issue, and 40%, that's presuming, God forbid, that the overwhelming activists in this room aren't a good representation of the overwhelming community. Everyone in here knows, I guess because I look like the winner of the Kentucky Derby, how I feel on this issue. The only other thing I would mention, and thank you, Mayor, for allowing us to speak with you last night. There was mention we had outsourced trimming of medians and trees in the previous commission. Now we're bringing that back in-house. And why are we bringing that back in-house? Because I made a mistake. Okay? Because the people that we had outsourced to didn't do as good a job.
Let's wrap it up, Noah.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. Because those people that outsourced and did what they were supposed to do according to what they thought didn't do it as well as we would want it done. I would urge and respectfully request that the mayor take an executive action to add an item to the agenda to reconsider the previous vote in regard to the ordinance. Thank you very much.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. It was very nice of you thanking the Code Review Board for the work on the metal roofs, and whatever amount of time they spent doing roofing, they spent twice that working on boats and RVs. We had enormous attendance when we had the public hearings, not just 12 people, we had packed houses. And it's almost a year after this ordinance has passed, and in July, the middle of July, it's going to go into effect. And to this day, the new code is still not on the website. Absolutely ridiculous that the old code is still on the website. And you could say, well, the code enforcement officer has been hand-delivering notices. But actually, that 1 year that they extended it to give people an entire year to come into compliance, to maybe buy the boat if they wanted to, what is going to be your excuse when they ask for variance because they're in the process of purchasing a boat now because they read the code, and the code still says they can have a boat in the front of their house. So if you really, truly want to thank the Code Review Board, try updating the website, getting the codes that you have passed. You have asked these people to spend hours, weeks, years taking care of, and then you just let them languish. That's not doing the community any good, and it's doing a disservice to this board. Okay, on to the sanitation. When the three of you who were running for office were campaigning, one of the common themes were we're going to stop the bickering on the dais, that the commissioners were all fighting, nobody could stand it. And honestly, you've done that. You all get along. And now, after 6 months, you have over 300 people talking about recall. I've lived here for 30 years. I've never seen a reaction like that. And you were very dismissive of the petition that they brought forward. It turned into, how can I believe this? They probably forged signatures. They didn't understand the issues. They were being told the wrong information. How could they not know this? It was so apparent to everybody. There was so much information out there. No, there wasn't. And I went back to look at a couple of statements that you commissioners have made. Commissioner Ross, you sent out an email to your email list. And you said, this is a quote, Waste Pro will pay the village general fund a franchise fee of $42,783. Fine. It sounds like great. We're getting that extra $42,000. The mayor, at the last meeting, I went back, I listened to the tape, and you said, how does this, you couldn't understand why we didn't understand this. And you said, how does this benefit the general fund? We're going to save a significant amount of money without charging the residents any more. That's $150,000 in savings we're going to put into the general fund. You may have misspoken, but that's what you said. So you, if this is incorrect, because I don't know where this $150,000 is coming from into our general fund, You are misleading the people. Well, you know, and I'll tell you something. I think I know where you got it, because you think we're now saving that money that we're not paying what we were paying before, the $570, and so now we're paying less, and so now you're going to have this $150,000 into the general fund. I'll tell you something. If I decide to buy a Corolla instead of a BMW, you don't get the difference I'm saving. The money that I'm saving by going to Waste Pro is not yours. You have no claim to it. And to tell people that you're going to get an extra $150,000 is not right. My last comment is Commissioner Anderson. He said, I went back over the tape and I put this word for word. When he asked the manager, he said, just about the sanitation increase to our general fund, for sanitation only, by outsourcing, what are we going to be gaining? Just for sanitation. And the manager said, $4,000 to $5,000. And he said, is that correct? And she said, yes. So with all of this great money that we're getting back to the village, it really amounts to $4,000 to $5,000. And I'm with the gentleman who said, I'll gladly pay a couple of $100 more and keep sanitation in-house. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about sanitation, I promise. Janie Anderson, 11th Place, 119th Street. Something that really bothered me about tonight's agenda was the volume of agenda items with no backup. You know, we as residents, we get one shot at coming and addressing you guys. And if we have to guess at what you meant, and we guess wrong, we've wasted everybody's time. And you guys can't possibly come prepared. So that then elongates the meetings that are already starting to get fairly lengthy. I mean, I look at, for example, agenda item, 11F, cost of the FPL lines to be placed underground. You guys have talked about that several times. For it to be back on the agenda, I have to assume there's something new out there. Well, it would have been nice, particularly if there's something new as an assessment or some such thing, that we would have all known and been able to comment. Same way with the possible new board to explore future needs in electric. These are things, if we're going to be able to comment, you don't have to give us a novel, but a paragraph would surely help. Then I go to agenda item 11G, which maybe gave us too much information. It probably wasn't quite necessary to be as specific and blunt to one resident's new property. I mean, I look at it, if we want to talk about visual blight, every time somebody talks about, let's look at Coral Gables and Miami Shores and how much stricter they are with their codes and how good their properties look, inevitably someone will come behind that, and sometimes it's a commissioner who will say, no, we want to be a little more inclusive, we don't want to be so tough, but as a result, we've still, even with our amazingly wonderful code officer, got a significant amount of properties that are eyesores. That's the visual blight. So if someone comes in and they want to remodel and they're turning their property around, okay, so they put a modern door on a mission home, but they're cleaning up and they're fixing up. You know, we're not a wealthy neighborhood of multi-million-dollar homes. We're here with people who are just really trying the best they can. And if you walk down the street and you see a house in transition and it's getting better and it's getting cleaner and it's being a good neighbor, you don't really care what their front door looks like.
Gary Kuehl, 777 Northeast 111th Street. Find it curious that you segregated the commission according to the vote on sanitation. I'm not going to go into a long harangue. Barbara and I did not sign the latest petition. We don't like the idea that it threatens a recall. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that I don't really understand what you guys are thinking. I just don't get it. Now, Dan made the statement that in the 6 or 7 months he had to think about this, that he came to the conclusion that he's in favor of outsourcing. Well, I don't know what magic pipeline Dan had. This has not been in the public view anywhere near that time. Interestingly enough, as mentioned earlier in the meeting, it was 8 months that we spent talking about metal roofs compared to the 2 months that this has been discussed in this community. And at the last meeting, all I asked is that you postpone it. is really put it out there and get a valid response from the community. I think you're getting a very good response. I think you're getting a very strong response. I think everybody knows that it's going to cost more money, and you just seem to ignore it. And I don't appreciate the fact that certain people are looking at their computer or their papers and not paying attention. I just don't understand why you were ignoring this. If it comes to the point where this village truly represented, be in a vote or further discussion or whatever means it is, that we have to outsource, fine. But you really have not educated the community. There were misstatements made by commissioners. There was confusion of the dais. There were claims that the petition was inaccurate. And all that information means to me that people are not fully informed, they are confused, and a bad decision is being made based on bad information. Thank you.
Gaspar Gonzalez. I live on Northeast 8th Court. On the sanitation issue, I moved to Biscayne Park 4.5 years ago, and I moved here. It was the first house I bought. I moved here because my wife was pregnant, and I wanted to raise my child here, and I wanted to make a life here, and I like that it's a village. That's why I moved here. And I like that we have in-house sanitation, and that I know the guys, and that I see them all the time. I like our police department. I like the fact that, you know, as Commissioner Ross likes to say, we're a hamlet with one street light. It's a favorite line of hers, at least it used to be. I bought my house from Audrey Earhart, who's sitting there. I like all of that. What I'm afraid is that I'm seeing all of that kind of go away piecemeal, and the people who are doing the most damage to that are the people who are front and center talking about what a great village this is, what a great small community this is. 2 years ago, you sent out an email. Everybody loved it, right? The sanitation department was working hand in hand with the police department. If they saw anything suspicious, the guys would be in direct contact with the police. And we applauded that. I thought that was a great idea. Is that going to happen with Waste Pro? So that was 2 years ago. Guess what? Never mind. You know, that's a problem. That's a problem. I collected petitions. I talked to a lot of people. A lot. You know I talked to a lot of people. I could basically divide everybody I talk to into people who think this is a lousy idea and people who don't know what's happening, with maybe one or two exceptions. So my concern is both what's happening with sanitation, but also what's happening with our village, with our small community. The mayor sent out an email today talking about the $1 million he got for the log cabin, and I think that, and by 5 o'clock it was up on the village website. You can check it out. And the last line said something of the email said something like, "I hope you'll join me in helping to preserve our small town feel." And I said, "Is that before or after you voted to outsource our sanitation to Waste Pro of Florida?" So, you know, I watch you guys, and all I can say is, next time you hear somebody on the commission talk about what a small town, what a great little community we have, watch out, because they're probably doing something that runs contrary to that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janine Milano. I live at 11350 Northeast 8th Court. I've been a resident here for 20 years. I've raised my children here, and this has always been a place of comfort for me to come home to. And I'm not feeling that so much now, knowing that there are people who aren't looking out for the best interest of the residents, and that really concerns me. I agree with probably 99.9% of what everybody has said coming up here, and I am truly heartfully disappointed in the fact that this hasn't turned around yet to where we are keeping our guys. Waste Pro has a horrible reputation. I have not heard one good thing about them at all. So talk to people in Keystone, talk to people in North Miami, and get that information, because they have the experience with this company. We do not yet, and I hope we do not, ever.
Caitlin Spur, 711 Northeast 118th Street. Ooh. So
I heard that we had plenty of time to know and to think about this. I work a lot. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I hear these kids out here, and I tell you, I love children. So I went into my email inbox, because this is how I get it on my phone. And I noticed that my first email about sanitation, and I get emails from the majority of you, is from Steve Bernard, funny, on March, end of March, March 31st. Sorry, not enough time, guys. I think we need to spend more time thinking about this. I heard about this from a neighbor yesterday, really upset about it, putting blue ribbons. I asked, what are all these blue ribbons about? He said, oh, they've pushed this through. And I thought, whoa, that was fast. I used to live in Colorado. I loved my city, but we had a waste management system that wasn't very good. These people would come and they'd pick up your trash and they'd throw your trash can right in your lawn. I'm not kidding. There was garbage everywhere. And I hear about these reviews from these people, and it scares me. I came yesterday without an opinion about this, spoke to a few people, only found one that was for it. You know, let's think about our kids. Let's think about the fact that this is for a family. This is why I moved here. There's a park. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I don't want to live with ugly trash cans. I don't want to live in a place where we have garbage trucks turning on rims, possibly hitting kids. We don't know. That's the reputation. Maybe we should think about this just a little bit more.
Chuck Ross, 1166 Griffin Boulevard. You know, I've already heard misinformation up here while I've been listening. So, I spent some time walking around the village, and most of the people I talked to, they were given misinformation or they didn't understand all of the issues. They weren't provided all of the facts. And I can tell you, and when I got done talking to them, they said, you know, the worst one that I heard said, if it doesn't work out in 5 years, we can always bring it back in-house, and that's a fact. Now one of the things that I haven't heard again tonight, and I went through several issues last time, was by outsourcing, we're going to be picking up an extra building. Right now, we are cramped in Village Hall. Our police are stuffed in the back of the village cabin, and they're working out of a trailer. This is talk about the $5,000 or $10,000. This is $500,000 or more. Now, that's a huge advantage, and that's something that you need to seriously consider. There was some mention about we can't opt out of the contract if they don't perform. We've got liquidating damages and penalties if they don't perform that we can enforce, so I don't know where that came from. I don't want to repeat everything that I said before, but one of the things I could point out is that we only have 6 full-time sanitation workers now because we can't get anybody to work for our low wages. So we can't fill a position. And if somebody's out, we have to pull guys off other positions in the village, which is roads and public works, and pull them over to sanitation to do a route. So there's work that's not getting done in other parts of the village, and this happens, from what I understand, fairly often. Another thing that we're going to do, which was mentioned already, is that we're going to bring back the median maintenance. That's a contract that costs us $27,000 a year. Now, I've asked one of our public works men, and I've been told that with what we're going to have, which is five employees in the public works / roads / sanitation, because we still are going to have somewhat of we're going to have a sanitation department, that they will be able to do the median maintenance. So there's a bigger cost than the $5,000 or $10,000 that was mentioned. There's also, excuse my voice, I'm being hoarse. I'm hoarse today. There's a $5,000 in-kind contribution that the company is offering us. They offer programs to incentivize programs to do more recycling. You know, this is the best time to do this now. We have the lowest number of sanitation workers, and our fleet needs to be completely revamped. So, at worst, if this doesn't work out, in 5 years, we can bring sanitation back, folks. That's right. It's not the end of the world. The sun will come up tomorrow, and the sky will be blue. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Good evening.
My name is Josh Stone. I live at 11210 Northeast 8th Court. You know, like a number of the people that we've heard from today, I moved to Biscayne Park. I was drawn by the sense of the community, the charm of the village. And since moving here 6 years ago, my wife and I have had our 2 kids, and really hope to spend the rest of our lives here. And that's how strongly we feel about this village. We've met 6 or 7 of our best friends, you know, in this village. And I can't think of another example of what attracts me to this village than what I've seen tonight. I'm so proud of the demonstration of community and the ethic that has been modeled at this meeting by our citizens, by this investment in the welfare of our sanitation workers, and in the investment in the very nature of what it means to be a community. And I would just hope, you know, if you haven't yet heard anything compelling enough to take this to a public vote or to rescind, that this incredible demonstration of what makes us special is compelling enough to do that. So again, I'm really proud of all you guys. It is, it's an honor to share the village with you, to share it with our workers, and I'm confident we're going to get this done.
Good evening, my name is Mitch Cuba. I've been a resident of Biscayne Park for almost 16 years. Mitch Cuba, I've been a resident of Biscayne Park for almost 16 years. I guess we've seen a lot of the residents today being concerned about some of the issues been going on. I know that a lot of you folks a couple of months ago knocked on my door. I took my time to listen to you, to what you had to say, and you guys made promises that, you know, if we voted, and I voted for a few guys that are, actually 3 of you that are sitting and that behind the bench. And I expect you guys to do the same for us. You are our voices. Our concerns should be heard. They should not just put to a vote. We should all agree on something. And I think most of us, we all have families, and we're busy with our lives, same as you guys, and we put you there because we hope you guys do the right thing and the right choice for us. So please listen to the residents of Biscayne Park. And again, we don't believe outsourcing. I'm sure there's other solutions out there, and I hope this can be accomplished. Thank you.
Marie Smith, 12015 Griffin Boulevard. I think I've beat the record here. I've lived in the village for 50 years. Okay? I have come to these commission meetings, and you could almost just count the number of residents that came to commission meetings on a regular basis. The same faces, the same problems. This has amalgamized all the villagers, all the residents, this outsourcing of sanitation. We are supposed to be a caring village. We should care for our sanitary workers that have been with us for years. It's just a disgrace to think that we voted you people in and you're not doing what we want you to do. And that is to be a caring community. You've had residents come up here, they specifically bought houses in here because of a small village, a caring village. We want this to go on, and we want to keep our sanitary workers. As old people said, they help us in the back, bringing our cars to the front. They help us in hurricane situations. And I can tell you that North Miami, who outsourced the Waste Pro, had nothing but problems from the residents. Nothing but problems. They had to have a liaison person to try to negotiate with the residents and the care that these residents were getting from Waste Pro. So the residents of the village have come out and said, we want to retain our sanitary workers. And you, who represent us and asked us to vote for you and put you on the podium there, we're asking you to do the proper thing for our people. We are a caring village. We should be a caring people. And this this problem of economics in the world, we see it in Congress all the time. Middle-class people being wiped out, just the very wealthy and the very poor. We don't want to become this in the village. We want to be a caring village. So I would say, let's keep our sanitary workers and let's make the residents happy. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Nobody else?
William Pierce, 650 Northeast 115th Street. I don't think I can say any more than what everybody else has already said. These guys are amazing. This is a village. Sorry, I'm not a very good public speaker. But you guys really aren't listening and feeling and being human about this whole decision. David, you came to my house and stood in front of my house. And you looked in my eyes and I said to you, you know, we need to vote people in here that will listen. You swore to me. You looked at me and said, yes, don't worry. If you vote for me, you will. What am I getting? What am I getting? Roxanne, you're a neighbor. Fred, you're a neighbor. You're not being neighbors with us. So be a person. When you go home and sleep at night, can you sleep at night because of this decision? Do the right thing.
Linda Dillon, 712 115th Street. I guess I don't have much of a life because for 36 years I've been coming to these meetings. And I went to the workshop on this issue. I've read emails. I've heard all kinds of things. I heard one figure mentioned one place. I heard a different figure mentioned a different place. And I got very confused as to the benefits or not benefits of outsourcing our sanitation department. I figure if all the meetings I've been coming to and all the materials that I've read, if I don't really have a clear understanding of what it would really going to cost me, then how are the people going to know when those don't come to these things and they don't have email or they don't have computers to even be able to look at our website? There were 300 more people that on a second petition in only 2 days. All we're asking is to postpone this, set the rate high enough that we could be able to take another look at this and see if it can't be done in-house. Yes, some people put on there that they wanted to put a recall. I'm not one of those. I signed the petition with the caveat that that not be included because I don't believe in it. It would cost our village even more money than what we have. But I think you need to pay attention and put it out for a vote for everybody. And then if everybody agrees and votes one way or the other, whatever that vote is, then at least everybody has been informed and had an opportunity to vote.
All right, any other public comment? Going once, that's it?
Wait a minute. I think there were emails.
Yes, if you would read those emails.
Okay, the first one is from Gary and Margaret Grizzle at 850 Northeast 121st. In response to Steve Bernard's follow-up email about the Monday night get-together with David and a few residents. Steve, why should any of us bother to come tonight? David has made it clear he believes there are hundreds more residents for outsourcing, though we have not seen but 10 of them. Even if we bring 1,000 people to the meeting, he is too cowardly to admit he may have made a mistake and step back for a few months. Fred will just start calling more petition signers and harassing and bullying them about outsourcing facts that he doesn't even understand. And lastly, Ms. Ross just be replaced by another commissioner down the road who will come sit on my front porch and tell me it's not his or her fault that previous commissioners acted irresponsibly and we are now in this terrible place. The next email is again from Margaret and Gary Grizzle. At the Monday night get-together, David said that the median outsourcing is not going to be brought back in-house. David, please explain to the residents in attendance tonight why this is happening and what it was decided and what will be accomplished by this move. Also, please remind us that this outsourcing can be undone, for the sanitation outsourcing will be virtually impossible to ever afford to undo. Next one is from Joseph DeSanti. Joe and I have been residents of the park for 43 years. We are disappointed and shocked that the public is having such a difficult time in having our voices and opinions heard by this commission and the city manager. The first workshop on this issue was never publicized. We are asking you once again to please send a flyer to every household with the information we all need to make an informed decision. This will affect all our lives in some way. Outsourcing versus in-house is much too important to just leave in the hands of a few commissioners. Further research, information, and facts, pro and con, and the public's opinions are needed. Solicit the public for suggestions and research on how to improve our in-house sanitation. I have heard many. Have you? Why are you jumping into this without listening? Outsourcing can always be done down the road if it is truly the way the village must go. We have tried to have our voices heard at previous commission meetings and workshops. It is understood that if we maintain sanitation in-house, that changes will need to be made. Please rescind your vote to outsource now. Thank you, Millie and Joe DeSanti. Okay, the next one here I have is from Steve Bernard. Clerk Camara, please read this email during good and welfare portion of the meeting. To the Honorable Mayor Coviello and Commissioners, from March 22nd, where the first workshop was held, until May 21st, when the second ordinance to outsource sanitation was read and approved, it is a total of 2 months. Residents are unsettled that it only took 2 months to change decades of history, and we're wondering what you will change next without our full knowledge and approval. A large number of your constituents, at least 276, have signed a petition asking that you temporarily suspend the Waste Pro outsourced sanitation contract and to submit a revised sanitation assessment to Miami-Dade County prior to the June 13th deadline. Waiting about a month to finalize the contract, setting a higher fee this year, then can be adjusted next year if outsourcing goes through, these won't cost the village anything. But losing the confidence of residents and the trust of your neighbors because you won't act on this simple request from so many taxpayers will cost us all. Why would you refuse to do that when you have another option? There's a pretense by the commission that every resident knew about the major changes in our village because you had 2 workshops and 3 public meetings. But that pretense is belied by the reality of how many people have signed 2 petitions and said that they had no idea something like this could happen. No idea what the saving or extra cost would be, no idea why it was happening. When the City of North Miami changed their water bill system, they notified every single resident and water user, both before the numbers were set and after. Will our claim to fame be that we are not even as transparent as North Miami? You all have a chance to back up your claim of transparency tonight. You also have the chance to never have a resident believe you when you see that word in the future. Because this will not be forgotten, we will be reminded every time a Waste Pro truck rolls down our street. To be clear, we are not asking you to cancel the contract with Waste Pro yet. We're asking you to temporarily suspend the contract with Waste Pro and provide enough information to every resident on a flyer so that everyone knows what our options truly are and can convey our very valid thoughts to you. Is that such an unreasonable request when so much is at stake? Please make a motion to help your constituents feel like we are your partners, not your subjects. Sincerely, Stephen Bernard. That's it.
Thank you. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Hepburn. I'm actually running to become your next state representative, and I wanted to stop by your commission meeting to learn more about your issues. So this was a rough night to stop by, but I can definitely say it was a great night to stop by. First, just to be very brief, I just wanted to congratulate the village as well as the commissioners and the mayor and the staff, and actually the residents as well, because of the allocation for the cabin. I've been a student of the political process for a while now. I truly can understand and value when government works in a sense and you're able to receive the funds that you need for needed services. So I just wanted to say congratulations again for that, because forging a strong partnership with our state senators and state representatives, definitely the senators, because they can make budget requests is something that's very important in order to receive the needed resources that our cities and our villages need within this district. And then the second part, this is the community activist side of me. The second part is just related to, I know at the end of the day, your jobs is very hard. Trust me, even now doing my tour throughout the district and going to our different cities, being an elected official is not an easy task. And you sit on some tough sides of issues when they come up and have to make some very difficult decisions. But I am very proud to be sitting here the last couple hours and seeing the passion from our residents within this village, how you have stepped up and talked and voiced your concerns to the commission, which is, I think, is great. Because trust me, being in other parts of our district, which starts from City of Miami to City of North Miami to Miami Shores, Biscayne Park, we also have El Portal. I can definitely say, looking at or visiting different parts and speaking to different residents, what has been shown tonight is something that's very inspirational and empowering, and I want you to keep up the good fight. Like, it's a good thing to voice your concerns and your opinions to the commission, and and let them know how you feel. And also, I know at the end of the day, you guys will come together and make the best decision for the village. And if that has already took place, I understand that concept too, but I know in order for government to truly work, it takes both sides coming together and making good decisions, listening to each other, making sure everybody's at the table, being very inclusive as much as you can, so you have everybody on the same page when you're pushing forth whatever the mission or the vision is for your city or your vision, your block, your street. So I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to be here. Secondly, I wanted to see my face, so when I'm knocking on your door and saying hello, you kind of know who I am now, right? And I just wanted to congratulate the village as well, again, for the allocation that you guys received for the cabin. So, yeah, have a good night. Good to see everybody come out.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you. All right. Any more public comment? That's it? All right, we'll close that public comment period. Madam Manager?
I'd like to do a couple updates since we have the public with us.
Okay.
The first is that we have uploaded to the city's website frequently asked questions, or an FAQ, to address some of the questions we've received regarding the transition to the outsourcing of services. I want to jump in and respond to something I heard during Public Works. We are aware that the code is not updated. It is something that we depend on the company Muni Code to do. For whatever reasons, ours are not updated, but Maria and I are going to work to find a way to get that, especially the boat stuff, front and foremost on the website. I hear you loud and clear. I just want you to understand, when I say the website's been updating for the FAQ, it's not that easy for the code. It is the Muni Code Corporation that we depend on for that, as most cities do. So we have an FAQ online. It has a series of questions. It also highlights that our Public Services Director and Assistant to City Village Manager Candia Sosa Cruz is the project manager for this transition. His phone number as well as email address are on the website under the FAQ. He's always around the village, and he's the person to go to if you have any questions. And finally, there's examples of recycling bins in the lobby, 35-gallon and 65-gallon. Postcards are going to be sent to every resident regarding, or every property owner, let me clarify that, regarding their choice for the size of recycling containers, as well as their preference for side door, back door service versus curbside service. But if you would like to check out the difference between 35 gallons and 65 gallons, that is in the lobby right now for you to see. And while we have everyone here, I just want to let everyone know that tomorrow we are interviewing police chief candidates, and we are having a meet and greet on the front lawn of the Village Hall tomorrow night at 5:30 for the commission and residents and staff to come out and meet our 3 finalists. We hope to have a decision made within the next month and our new police chief on board in July. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Commissioner Watts?
In light of what we've heard from the residents tonight, I wondered whether or not you and the other commissioners would entertain the thought of reconsidering ordinance 2012-04 or 03, perhaps a discussion of it.
Comments, discussion?
Yeah.
Commissioner Jonas?
Yeah. Have we signed a contract with Waste Pro yet?
I'm going to defer to the attorney. It's the legal issue.
legally, we have, the contract has been executed, number one, based on commission direction, and number two, when the commission approves it, it is binding at that point. So we have an approved contract with Waste Pro at this time.
It is not a revocable contract as of today.
Well, there is, and the question came up, just so everybody knows, you're not going to find a contract with a waste company that will give you a termination for convenience because of what they have to put into the contract and their time. So our contract is for cause. It's a binding contract at this point.
Let me interrupt you. What I'm asking is, have we signed the contract as of today? Have we made a commitment?
Right, well, the contract has been signed, but what I'm telling you is at the time that you passed the ordinance approving the contract, it is a binding contract. It has been signed as it was approved May 21st.
Okay. In that case, just so I understand the issue, Barbara, can you explain what it is you're asking the commission to do?
I didn't know that the contract would, because it was passed, that meant it was signed. I thought that there were still changes to be made to the contract. But I left.
Two things. The contract was approved by the commission and was executed.
Okay.
It has been executed.
With the changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, consistent with, this
And-
is a very,
and-
this
and you both
real
received
quick,
the email.
real quick. This is a very simple legal issue.
Mhm.
When this commission votes, whether it's 3-2, 4-1, 5-0, 3-0, 4-0, that is binding, consistent with the charter, consistent with state law, consistent with Chapter 166 Florida statutes. That is not a difficult legal issue. That is a very simple legal issue. Like it or not, that's what the law provides.
John, if this was nothing but an internal matter, could we not introduce a new ordinance that vacated a previous ordinance?
You can always introduce a new ordinance.
Right.
But because this is a private agreement that's been executed, that will not.
Correct.
That's not a possibility.
Right.
That's
I
what I'm
obviously
asking.
have not received any direction, nor has the manager, because the commission meets, as we all know, at public meeting. Anything else would be outside the public meeting, in violation of the Sunshine Law. So we take our direction from this commission. So I have not spoken to Waste Pro, but from a legal point of view, we have a binding contract with Waste Pro. Now, what Waste Pro will or will not do, I can't tell you. But historically, they've enforced their contracts in a very aggressive manner.
And they have every right to do that at this point. They have a contract that they can enforce.
They have a binding contract with the village, correct?
Excuse me.
Who signed it?
So
All right,
then, so then let me come back to my question to Barbara, which is, Barbara, what would you like the commission to do?
Well, to do something. If we
Well-
could have another ordinance, do something to rescind this ordinance. I think that, and I'd like to ask, I know that an email was sent because I received a copy of it, asking, and I think it was copied to John, that an escape clause be added to the contract because there was a movement afoot amongst the villagers to call for a referendum or some such thing. And I wonder why you did not try to put an escape clause in there, knowing that there was such disrest in the village and that the village is so opposed to it. If we want what's best for the village.
There's a separate party that negotiated a contract with us. This commission considered that contract, had it in front of them, and approved it. There's a second party here that would have to agree to that escape clause. They would not agree to that escape clause, number one. Number two, I cannot take an email from an individual, not even an elected official, and change a contract that this commission has approved. That would be an ultra-virus action in violation of the charter and in violation of commission direction.
Okay, then
And it would not have been agreed to by Waste Pro. They're not going to invent, you can look at the contracts, negotiate a lot of these. There's a 97-page contract with the City of Coral Springs. They do not do a motion for a termination for convenience. These companies do not do that, will not do that. That's just the reality of it.
All right, in your advice, legal advice, what can be done to get out of this contract?
In my legal advice, I would look for, if this commission would want to get out of the contract, we would obviously contact Waste Pro. I don't know what they're going to say. There's a separate private party that's involved. This is not an ordinance that we passed that this commission wants to change, it only affects the law in the Village of Biscayne Park. This is an ordinance approving a franchise fee with a private entity. So they would have the right to go ahead and enforce that contract. If the commission would like to unravel that contract, we would legally do everything we could to do that. But there's consideration provided to an outside party, and in contracts, when the consideration is given, provided, you have to live by the terms of the contract.
Then another question. The ordinance that was published for the second reading of the ordinance stated that the motion to approve on the first reading was made by myself, okay, and that it was seconded by Commissioner Anderson. This was not the case. So that's false. So the ordinance is in error. Should not the ordinance be redone and voted again? Does that invalidate the ordinance?
It does not invalidate the ordinance under state law. Just because you have what's called a Scrivener's error, it does not invalidate the action of the commission. So the commission's action was clear, their motion was clear. If the ordinance did not reflect the proper maker of the motion, it does not change the fact that the motion was approved.
Okay, any other comments? Commissioner Anderson?
I just want to be clear. So if this commission voted to have a new ordinance to rescind that ordinance, and if it was approved, that second ordinance to rescind that first one, what does that mean?
Well, what does that mean? I guess, right, there's a binding contract that still exists. Waste Pro would, and I don't know what they're going to do, but most likely they would want to enforce their contract because they have profits that is why they entered into the contract, I assume. And so they would they could sue to enforce that contract.
Would it be possible to request of Waste Pro that we tear up the contract because there was so much opposition in the village? Could we make it a request and see if they would entertain the possibility?
From a legal point of view, can you legally make that request? Yes. I would assume that they're going to stick by the contract, but I don't know.
All right, any other comments? Commissioner Ross?
I wish I could address every one of your comments, and every time I send out an email, my cell phone number is at the bottom of that email, and I welcome you to call me so that we can discuss these issues before, I mean, it is now the 13th hour, it's not even the 11th hour. So before we get to a decision has been made, an ordinance has been read twice, and a contract has been signed, I encourage you to engage us. We're coming up on the budget process now. Engage us before we make a final decision on these things.
Excuse me, ma'am. No. It's not how it works.
I listen to every comment that's made here at the podium or sent to me in an email or even made to me while I'm shopping at Publix. I hear what you're saying. When I'm here, I write down your comments. I reflect on them. I read them. They do weigh on me, and they are part of what helps me make a decision. There were comments made about our employees and appreciation for our employees, and I have to tell you personally, every employee in this village is important to me. We have shared meals together in celebration. I have visited with their families in times of hardships, at funerals. This was not an easy and light decision to make, but I made the decision based on fiscal responsibility that I owe to the village and to the residents of the village. And so you've all heard the decision has been made.
Then I would also like to ask why we have pushed this through so quickly. We had to supposedly set the sanitation fee on June 1st, but in fact it wasn't. We did not have to set it. The deadline is June 13th. So that special commission meeting, just a short 2 weeks after the initial passing of the ordinance, just came instantly. And I think we could have given time, and it would have given residents more time to get the message out of what's going on. I'm just distressed with this whole
But
commission.
Commissioner Watts, I mean, with all due respect, we had 2 workshops. We spent many hours discussing this. The workshops were actually well attended. Notices went out. You know, I understand that some people may not have been aware of this, but you know, the saying goes, you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. I mean, you can't force people to be engaged in the process. And like I said, you know, there are many people that are against this. And I struggle with this. But to say that we're not listening to you, well, then if I change my vote and vote for how you want me to vote, all the other people that I've spoken with who think outsourcing is a good idea fiscally, I wouldn't be listening to them. So there's a no-win situation for me. All right, there are a number of people out there that really believe that this is the right thing to do.
I think we had about 4.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
And so, you know, excuse me. That's respectful. Thank you. So, excuse me. So, again, you know, it's a very passionate issue, and I feel that passion, but at the end of the line, the decision needs to be made based on the numbers. And I don't know whether all of you have looked at the budget and the numbers, but you know, for example, last night I met with a number of residents, and a gentleman got up and was criticizing the contract, and he was adamantly arguing about the contract terms. I said, sir, did you read the contract? Oh, no, I didn't read the contract, but I read many other contracts. Well, that doesn't help the situation. How do I engage someone that is not even willing to read the contract? And so, again, I feel I'm doing the best I can up here, and I'm making the tough decisions that I think need to be made. And I apologize if I'm disappointing some of you, but I need to move the village forward. And this is one step that's going to... Excuse me. All right. Commissioner Jonas.
You know, clearly, we've gotten the whole thing wrong. Outsourcing is wrong, and if we outsource, Waste Pro is wrong because they're terrible. It's sort of amazing to think of how much of so many people's time and trouble went into this to come out with exactly the wrong result. It's almost unbelievable that such a thing could happen, but clearly that's the message. One of the big complaints is that those of us who think outsourcing is a good idea are heartless and uncaring, and especially toward village employees. What you need to understand is what we're asking the village employees to do is exactly the same job they've been doing for years and decades in exactly the same place for more money. Now, I have a really hard time figuring out what's heartless and uncaring about that. It seems almost like an advantage to me. I have said in the past, and I would say today, that I would be available to reconsider and to rescind, and I have made very clear in the past, and would do so again today, what I need. I need a solid majority of people who say they are willing to write the check. As soon as I get back a petition that is faulty, so I can't really trust what anybody who signed it thinks, and I find out that some of the people whose names were there didn't sign it, and I find out that some of the people who don't want to outsource then want to say, however, the number you're giving us for not outsourcing is too high and we want to fix it, then I don't have that sense of a reliable majority of people who are willing to write a check. We have somebody who figures out what the service should be and what it should cost. We hire a manager to do that. We can't have dozens of managers. We can only have one. And when a petition comes out or anybody makes a statement that, gee, it would only cost about $105 more if we did it in-house, it's completely wrong. And if anybody includes that kind of information on a petition, I have to assume that they think that's important information. They think that's something that a prospective signatory would want to know. If they think so, then they must think that it would make a difference to
to a prospective signatory if the number was not 105, but rather 280, which is what it is. So I am not given the opportunity that I need, that I have requested, to consider changing my mind. I just can't do it. I think we're doing the right thing for the village. I think it strengthens the village. It certainly strengthens Public Works, and frankly, it does a great favor to our village employees, the ones we say we care about, the ones that we pay shamefully. And I just can't do it. How does that change any of the issues I just raised? If you want me to be overpowered, then let's change the form of government in Biscayne Park. Let's not have a commission anymore. We'll have town meeting. You raise your hand and we'll do whatever you want. But that's not what we have.
Okay, sir.
Can we move the consent agenda?
I'm just trying to keep order. You can't be screaming out loud.
You said transparency.
Mr. Madar, there never were 327 signatures, and all of the ones that are there are people who got misinformation. Sorry.
I would like to move the consent agenda. Next on our agenda.
Second.
Okay. Consent agenda. Okay, motion by Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Jonas. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm sorry?
Opposed?
Okay.
We can't oppose. It's consent.
Consent.
Oh,
You
wow. Is
wanna
there
remove
something to pull for the discussion?
Is there something you want to pull?
No, I'd like to continue talking about sanitation, and still possibilities of, if the contract hasn't been, the service hasn't been begun, there's still a possibility.
Yeah, but there was a motion.
You have a vote.
4 to 1?
Yeah, 4 to 1.
Okay.
Is she okay to
Yeah, you can always.
propose the consent?
Always.
Okay.
All right, item 7C, resolution 2014-42.
That's part of the,
That's part of
part of the
Part.
consent.
I'm sorry. Item 8A, ordinance 2014-04.
This is an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, amending Chapter 3 entitled Animals relative to dogs and city-sponsored events, providing for conflicts, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. Mayor, it's first reading, and we have public hearing as well.
Madam Manager?
Would you like me to give a report before
Yeah,
public hearing?
let's just wait 30 seconds
Sure.
for... Tommy, can you just close that back door? Thank you. Okay. All right, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. So our current code of ordinances prohibit pets being in our public parks. They are allowed on our medians, but they're not allowed in our parks. As you know, we've made a concerted effort this year with our Parks and Recreation Department to diversify our programming. So part of that programming, we came up with a couple events. Recently we had Walk a Hound, Lose a Pound, which was very well attended and enjoyed by all. It's something we hope to do in the fall, in the cooler months, on a monthly basis to get the village out there and exercising together. That event ended in the park. Because dogs are not allowed in the park, that really wasn't legal or kosher, if I can say that. So with 4th of July right around the corner, we have another excellent event planned. It's a first time for us, and it's called Bark of July. Those of us who are dog owners know that dogs just do not like fireworks. And this is an opportunity for families to come out with or without their dogs and celebrate the 4th of July for a few hours in our parks. But in order to do that, we need to look at our code of ordinances. So staff is proposing the following language. This language would be permanent change in our code, but I'm using these events as examples of what's driving us to change the code. So if you go to page 2 of 3 of the ordinance, starting on page 9, I'll just quickly read the language because it was also mentioned earlier in public comments, and I'd like to address that. Notwithstanding the above, upon approval by the Village Commission, dogs may be allowed in a public park for a village-approved event. If approved as provided, the village shall take precautions to ensure proper pickup and disposal as necessary. The intent of this language is that we would come before you every time we had a scheduled event that would allow parks, dogs in the park. So it would not just be a free-for-all anytime there's a city event, but it's for village-sponsored events.
Manager, what line item was that?
I'm sorry, which agenda item?
No, the line item.
Line number 9 on
Number
page 2 of 3.
Thank you, so I can follow
You
what
got,
you're saying.
just let me know when you're there. It's ordinance 2014-04. I'm sorry, I don't have the PDF in
It's
front of
the
me to tell you
underlined
the
portion,
page.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Commissioner Ross, do you know what page it is on the PDF? I don't have it on my iPad.
I'm looking at the sort of bookmarks that are set on the side.
yeah.
And it's, I guess, page 4, after your memo. There's a memo that's 2 pages, and then on the ordinance title page, and the second page, the page after that.
Yeah, I have page 2 of the ordinance itself.
Yes, you got it.
That's where it is.
You're there.
And I have it right here.
Great.
I just wanted,
Great.
exactly, because I'm sorry, I'll let you finish, and then
I'm done.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I mean, my point is that we're always going to come to you and do just a quick motion or an approval from the village that we're going to have it.
I'm just concerned on that one section in there. I wish it was a little clearer that it would have to be whether we can call it.
Commissioner Anderson, we'll open, after staff, we're going to open it up to the public, and then we'll come back to the commission.
Great.
All right, any member of the public want to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
You were correct, Mayor. I was out of turn. I apologize. I'd just like to see something in there that it would be clearer that, whether it's a resolution or whatever we want to call it, but it says it's clear that for each time it comes in front of the commission for approval.
Right, and that's the intent. If you want to add by resolution, I can add that between now and second reading.
Yeah.
Be happy to do it.
If that's a consensus.
But that's what the language says, doesn't it?
Just doesn't say by resolution. If you
Okay.
Well, I mean, the way, not being an attorney, I look at it, it's not really that clear. Maybe it is legally, but it's just not that clear.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it says approval of the village commission. If you want to add by resolution, that's fine.
Per event, see, what I was just taking it, this is passed.
Is it really necessary to do resolution? And then it's going to require staff to prepare I mean, not that it's...
It doesn't have to be a resolution, it's just, if it says, approval by the commission per event, or something like that.
Okay, per event. That's
per event, yeah.
Per event.
Commissioner...
You have something, Ross?
Ross?
I would like to make a motion to approve the ordinance on a first reading with the change that we just described.
Okay, so...
I have discussion, too.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Jonas, you have...
Just as a little bit of a frame of reference, some years ago, there was discussion, not for the first time, about the idea of having a dog park in the village. And it turned out that we went so far as to explore the idea and ask about different public areas that could theoretically be used as a dog park. It turned out that there were a number of residents in Biscayne Park who had dogs, and they would love to take their dogs to a dog park, but there was nobody in Biscayne Park, nobody who lived here, that wanted a dog park near them or next to them, not in a median next to them or across from them, not in a vacant lot. Even the people who had dogs and liked to use dog parks did not want the dog park to be next to them. So I think there's something to be said for the idea of public spaces in which there are no dogs, that can be predicted to have no dogs, so there aren't dogs running around. Some people don't like dogs. I know people who are afraid of dogs just as a general reaction. Frankly, I think we would make a mistake to convert this park, even on an occasional basis, to a place where people could bring their dogs and either let them run around or even have them on leashes. I think it's nice for people to be able to know that they can come to the park and there won't be any dogs. People who have dogs are welcome to have them at home, in the house, in the yard, or take them to a dog park somewhere else. But I think it's nice to preserve this park the way it is as a dog-free park.
So I take it you're not in favor of it, even if it's limited to specific events?
Right.
Well, I often think of all of our medians as sort of small parks, pocket parks, passive parks. And I wonder if the effect of this would then preclude dogs from being in the medians unless it's for a specific event.
If you look at page 2, line 6 of the ordinance, it says, provided, however, this provision shall not apply to parkways and other parks in which dogs are specifically authorized. So
Okay.
the language allows, the medians are considered parkways, and had there ever been a dog park created, I think it would have fallen under that.
So the intent
language.
is for this location, the Butterfly Park, and I guess Founders Park.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, motion by Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Harrison, all in favor? Or
Ordinance.
roll call, sorry.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Jonas?
No.
Mayor Coviello?
Yes.
Can't agree on that one.
Okay, 9A, Resolution 2014-43.
Mayor, this is a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park designating the voting delegate for the Florida League of Cities 88th Annual Conference to be held on August 14 through the 16th, 2014 in Hollywood, Florida, providing for an effective date. So we're looking for an appointment from this commission.
Correct, Mayor. We're just asking for y'all to provide a date.
But what we need to do is to find out, Mayor, were you planning to go?
Yes, I'll go. But you're typically the representative?
Right, but I most likely won't be available.
Okay. Are you available?
This is for the Florida League of Cities Annual Conference. I intend to go. It's in Hollywood. It's really good training for elected officials, no matter how. I mean, this is my 5th year, but I think it's important to go. There's always new things that come up. There are peers in other cities that we can connect with, network with, and trade experiences with and learn from. So I intend to go, and were you not going to go, I would have asked myself, but that's great. I think we should appoint you as the
Okay,
voting
so this is
delegate.
just to appoint the voting delegate. Okay, all right. So, motion?
Make a motion to appoint our mayor as the voting delegate.
A second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Harrison, second by Commissioner Ross, Jonas, Ross. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, old business, item 10A, Commissioner Ross.
I'm sorry, I don't have a 10A on my bookmarks.
Update on the,
Dan on White
Okay. Real briefly, we don't have an answer yet. There was an order that approved, the Leon County judge approved the bond issue for the Y-Green Clean Corridor, Coastal Clean Corridor PACE District. And we are in the appeal period. The appeal period, I think, expires June 8th. And if there's no appeal, then they will proceed with rolling out the program. But if there are appeals, then that's going to delay the process for quite a while. I know there are residents out there that are anxiously awaiting for the program to become effective so that they can start implementing clean energy and hardening projects in their homes. And I'll keep you updated as I get the word.
okay, thank you, Commissioner Ross. Commissioner Harrison?
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Can you send something to the clerk? Because I'm getting some questions from some of our residents. Where are we on this? And
Sure.
I'd like to have something, if our clerk then could distribute it, to the commission.
I
This way-
certainly will.
This way, we can be all speaking with the same voice.
I certainly will.
Okay, new business, item 11A. Commissioner Watts?
This was suggested to me by a resident, Susan Weiss, and I think those of us who read the e-print might have seen it. It caught my eye as well. But she proposed that we sort of institute a photo contest, an annual photo contest or something that would, oh, I'm sorry, take place 3 times a year. And this is what Miami Shores has done. And I was thinking that we might have the new Art Advisory Board sort of ask them if they could be involved in this. And it could be a contest 3 times a year with the photographs published in the newsletter 3 times a year, and prints of them displayed here in the rec center. And we might do it, and it might be a way of creating some sort of solidarity and community involvement. And I thought that we could have 2 categories, 18 years old and older and 18 years and younger. And it could be, people could send their photographs by way of electronically, to cut down on paper, and maybe the Art Advisory Board could be the committee. And I thought that it could be themed, according, and photographs taken in Biscayne Park. Like each year there could be, or each 3 or 4 times a year, there would be a theme publicized, like taking pictures of nature in general, parks and parkways, animals, or in a recognizable Biscayne Park setting, homes and yards, or Biscayne Park events, or anything goes. And I just thought it might be something that we could also publish the winning pictures in the newsletter if there were funds for that. And it just might be a nice thing to get people taking pictures and providing us with a history of Biscayne Park and have photographs from this generation, since we have lost many of the photographs of earlier decades.
Commissioner Watts, you're looking at to have the art board to be to go ahead and pick the winners and
Well,
go through that.
I know. Well, that wasn't what they were charged with, but and so we might have to change the charge or expand it or interpret it loosely. But I thought that might be an easy thing to do.
Because we need to have somebody, and we don't want to have staff, burden staff with this. So
Barbara?
basically, it would be the art board would be in charge of this.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Jonas?
Yeah, I think this is a really nice idea. I think it's very engaging. I can see why it would be something that the art board would want to get involved in, or maybe recreation advisory because they have events. I'm just not clear what this has to do with the commission. Why are we talking about this? Why is this not something that's just suggested to them and they do it if they like the idea?
I thought it was necessary
Oh.
to just discuss. Because one, the Art Advisory Board isn't really charged with this, and if, I don't know, I wasn't told that it was inappropriate to present before the commission.
No, I just don't know why it's necessary, what we would have to say about this.
Well, just to say, yeah, it was just discussion, whether or not you like the idea, and if so, we could go ahead with it, go forward with it.
Well, I think if they like the idea, they should do it. It's a very nice idea.
That is, Commissioner Watts, the only thing that, what Commissioner Jonas is saying, and I have to agree with him on a part of it, is, before you come up here, to bring this in front of it, if one of the boards you feel is appropriate, at least get the buy-in from the board. I can understand bringing it, for a discussion, but at least, you get some of the kinks worked out of it.
But I didn't know that I had the right to ask a board, when actually I wrote this before the board was really in place.
Okay.
But I don't know that I have the right to ask the board to do those.
Well, you can ask them to put on the agenda. I don't see, well, that's here and there. Yes, then it would have to come in front of us, you want it in the newsletter or stuff like that. Yes, then we would definitely have to buy in, the commission does. So
I don't think we would, Bob, because we don't edit the newsletter. It's the manager who does that.
Well, I'm not going to get into a back and forth discussion. I mean, this is...
Yeah, this is just a...
All right. So anything else
Can
on
I
this?
just make a recommendation, just much like we've had discussion and sort of tasked or asked the Code Review Board to look at a particular section, why don't we just task or ask the committee, the Art Review Board, to take a look at this and see what kind of program they can come back with.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I think that's, Commissioner Watts is in agreement with that. All right, 11C, Commissioner Jonas.
I've brought this up before. I've noticed that for a while at the very beginning, the Ecology Board really didn't meet for a long stretch of time. Then it did for a while, and it seems that now it pretty much doesn't meet anymore. I'm not sure exactly what the mission of the Ecology Board is, separate from other boards like Parks and Parkways, for example. So I was thinking that maybe there would be a possibility that perhaps we should declare that the Ecology Board maybe doesn't need to exist anymore, and that the more interested members of it could join other boards, since it just dilutes the pool of interested people, and the Ecology Board doesn't really seem to do anything.
Mayor?
Yes.
This is one of the items that I wish there was a little bit of a backup on it.
Oh, I
So it would
apologize
have
for
shown,
that.
because I think it's really unfair to discuss whether we want, thinking about disbanding this board without even the members that are on the board to be able to be here, talk to us about it. I mean, I think we're jumping ahead.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't
That's
think
fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment that there are sometimes, and particularly in the last couple of legislative sessions, there have been ecology considerations that it was always my goal to involve the boards. For example, there was some legislation that was being floated about septic tanks and, changing it over to a more ecologically friendly system. So those are the kinds of topics, particularly because we do have some professionals on the board, I thought would be ideal for them. But perhaps there aren't issues to discuss every month, and maybe they would be able to fill those duties meeting quarterly. Also, I think it would take away the burden on staff to have to be liaison to some of these committees if they didn't, some of these boards if they didn't have to meet every month.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, 11D, Commissioner Anderson.
I just want to get consensus, of the commission. Do we really need to have this draft agenda? I find it useless until I have a full agenda with the backup. Because the draft agenda, a lot of times what's on it may not be on the full agenda, has been removed. So I just feel it's a waste of time. And I don't know what the rest of the commission, if the majority feels it's a waste of time, then let's do away with it.
I mean, I don't know that it takes a lot of time to generate the draft and send it around, and if you're not interested in seeing it, you could ignore
Well,
it.
that's what I'm saying. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Does anyone else rely upon the draft agenda?
I'd be interested on staff's comments about it.
So the truth be told, we have the draft agenda ready for next month, first thing tomorrow morning. So I appreciate that concern about our time. It's something we work on. We don't mind sending it out if it's of benefit to the commission, but it's not something that we generate specifically for y'all. It's actually our working document. We're actually usually 2 months ahead, starting to sketch out the agenda.
Okay, because this is
Yeah.
something that we just
I
started
appreciate
only
that.
like about a year ago.
And we
or less than a
appreciate
year
that
ago.
consideration of our time, but it's a working document that we
Okay.
live with.
I think sometimes it does raise more questions than it answers, but it also gives us an opportunity to do the research and get ready in advance.
Yeah, I feel that way too. It gives me a little bit of a heads up, so I know what to ask about.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for that consideration there.
11E, Commissioner Ross.
11E. A couple of months back, I noticed that the manager's weekly reports, which, by the way, are fantastic, very expanded, very comprehensive, and keep us updated on everything across village-wide. But I did notice that the code section where she reported on, where the manager, Heidi, reported on code compliance issues, if there was a code violation issued, but also if there was just a courtesy notice issued, the property specific address was put on that report. And those reports get posted online, so it's very easy for those reports to come up in a Google search, and I thought that was a little bit too proactive to sort of out people for a courtesy notice. I had a conversation with the manager about it, and since then, it's not house specific, but it's on the 1100 block of a street, and I feel comfortable with that. but I was afraid that she started started posting those postings because another commissioner asked. And so I thought we need to have the discussion here so she has clear directive from a majority of the commission whether it's required, whether it's more desirable to have the house-specific address, or is it well enough to just say on this block there was a courtesy notice for dirty shutters.
I was the commissioner that asked for this. I don't know if anybody else might have asked. I do concur, because I didn't, you know, courtesy notices are just that. It's please go ahead and do something. I don't believe in embarrassing somebody when they may not have known. I do believe in embarrassing people that after they've been fined and it's gone through the code hearing board because they're embarrassing their neighbors because they've been fined. But that's not what this is about. But, you know, so I agree we shouldn't be embarrassing people who are just getting a courtesy notice.
Okay, so is the consensus to take off the address for the courtesy notices and leave the address for all other, for violations? Okay?
For violations after it's gone through the code hearing process.
Is that?
The report now includes courtesy notices and violations issued, but not heard. So I would be comfortable with just saying we issued 12 courtesy notices, and then when it's actually a violation issued, to have the street, but not the house number.
If I could chime in.
Yeah.
I struggle with this myself because I'm going to put myself out of the manager role because I'm the person who goes in and talks to our code compliance officer and says, why aren't you doing anything about that house on XYZ street? And the code compliance officer replies to me, they were cited in 2007 and they have daily running fines. And I think that is the general perception sometimes of these homes, that nobody is doing anything about it, including me and my staff. And I'm the first to react to this, and my staff will tell you, I come in almost daily with a question about a house that I run across. So I struggle. How do we let the village know that we are working on these things, that we are being proactive? If I can chime in on this conversation and make a recommendation, I think saying something in the 1100 block of XYZ Street is still okay, even for a courtesy notice. It lets you all know this is a weekly communication between myself and you as the commission. We do provide it on the website as a courtesy to the residents, but it's really a communication to keep you all abreast. And I think it's important for you all to see the work that we're doing done. I do not mind sharing it if you're okay with it, saying the 1100 block of XYZ Street for all of them, as we have done in recent weeks. The violations that are issued are just that, violations that have been issued. They have not been heard from the board. When we go through goals and priorities at the end of this meeting for the coming year, that's one of the things I think we'll need to speak about as well, is finding a better way to get all that 2006, all those things that always are our question marks up, so there's a searchable database or spreadsheet or something like that up there. Our goal is not to, and I'm not taking away from your statement, our goal is not to embarrass anyone, but more to show that we have a strong code compliance ethic, you know, in our day-to-day operations.
Commissioner?
I do agree with the way you're having it, you know, the way it is now. It's not putting the exact address. But what I think it's really strange, I haven't got one phone call or an email from anybody saying, look, you're embarrassing me, you're putting my address in there. I mean, I'm fine with the way you're doing it, but I haven't heard from anybody complaining about it. So if nobody is saying anything, I think it's working. It's doing a good job.
Commissioner Watts?
A couple of things. I think that you haven't heard from many people because the manager has just started in recent weeks putting those weekly updates on the thing, and many people don't know about them yet to go look for them.
Well,
so, and
True.
Yeah.
True.
And then
weekly
the other
update.
thing is that actually, in the end, if aren't the minutes of code compliance meetings, those are listed on our website as well, right? The minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the minutes actually list the actual numbers, house numbers of the residents. So it could be, even though if someone were to Google, as you know, Commissioner Ross says, Google the house number, that the citation, it won't show up under village's manager report, but it will show up under the code compliance meeting minutes. You know?
A citation will, but not a courtesy notice.
Ah,
Right.
okay.
All right, so the courtesy notices will continue to be by block, and the violations will be by address.
Violations issued, which
Yeah,
is in the
issued.
code compliance minutes.
Right. Is that okay?
And just for clarification, all of the manager reports are up online dating back to the first week in December.
Okay. All right, 11F, did that come off or?
No.
No, it's still
Okay, 11F. Commissioner Jonas?
Yeah, and I apologize on this one too for not having provided a backup. We have recently talked a lot about FPL lines and how to support them, and there was a lot of discussion about the advantage of having lines underground, and I agree with that. It would be a wonderful advantage. Because it's expensive, what I would like to see us do as a village and as a commission and as management is to calculate how much it would cost to put all the lines underground and bring them to the houses, and then send that calculation to every homeowner so that we can find out if people are willing to pay for it. If people are willing to pay for it, then I think it's a very different deal here in Biscayne Park in terms of power lines. I don't know whether it'd be fair to say that absolutely 100% of homeowners would have to agree to pay, or whether we could somehow get this to happen if only 98% agreed. But I think we need to know. And I will tell you that maybe 5 or 6 years ago or something like that, when this issue came up, I asked the commission to survey the neighborhood to see if Biscayne Park residents and homeowners wanted to pay to put the lines underground, but the commission wouldn't do it. But I think we should do it. For example, I know that the cost to put all the common lines underground would be approximately $4,500 per home. There's an additional cost to put the other lines, which is the AT&T lines and Comcast, underground as well. We have to pay that too. And there's an additional cost, which is approximately $1,500, to bring that line from the underground main to the house. And I think if people, especially the people who advocate to put this system underground, knew what the cost was, then they would be in a better position either to advocate more firmly for it or to decide they don't want to do it. But we can't really assess this if we haven't ever asked anybody. So I think we should ask.
I asked Ms. Player some months ago, and I'd have to find my notes of the cost from taking the lines from the house to the street. But I'm not really good with numbers, so I might be wrong. But I thought that the ballpark number that she said for putting all of the lines in Biscayne Park underground would be $6 million, but to do the Griffing and 119th Street or 6th Avenue ones, that would have been about $2 million.
Yeah, what you're talking about and what she can talk about is the cost of putting the main lines underground. That has nothing to do with bringing the power from that main line underground to your house.
I know, but she had
that you
asked
negotiate with an electrician. But I'm just suggesting that we ask everybody, that we calculate a real number and ask people if they want to pay it.
So is that something you just want to informally put in the next newsletter?
We could do it that way, or even better than that would be if we sent something to everybody and asked them to respond.
A mailing could cost us in the range of
Yeah.
$1,200. We're getting ready to do the mailing for sanitation.
Can you just do it electronically where they, or well, I guess not everyone has it.
We have the opinion poll online.
And people, we can craft the poll where people would have to like put in their address, so you can't.
Well, maybe a good idea then would be, in fact, to put it in the newsletter and give our phone number and say, please call us, and here's the amount, here's what it would cost you. Call us with a yes or a no.
we can certainly do that if I may, but I'm under the wire to get this newsletter out, so I would
Doesn't
need
have to be now.
Okay, so if
Could
you
be
can
the next
provide
one.
that information down the road of the cost and everything else.
You want me
I
to
can-
provide it?
Manager?
No, we have the information from Ms. Player, but we would also put in some language that there would be additional cost to each homeowner.
Well, what I'm suggesting we do is find out what that cost would be, so we can give somebody a whole number and say, this is what it would cost you as a homeowner to convert this whole system to underground.
That number's going to be difficult because it's based on your setback from your property line to where your house comes in and the location of your junction box on your house.
Right.
So those who have those beautiful setbacks or those who are up against the street are going to have different costs.
Right.
And
each
that's an
home-
individual cost to the
And
homeowner.
each home, according to its setup and design, could have also a different cost.
Well, there's the other part. Right now, power comes down one side of your street, unless you happen to have it behind you. The line goes, if you're on one side of the street, it doesn't have to cross the streets. But if you live, the house is on the opposite side, you're paying now for the street to be cut up and that power to be put through, under the street, back to your house. That number that you're going to be paying living on that side of the street is going to be a drastically different number to get the power into your house from where that line is coming down the side of the street versus the other people. And then you get into where the medians are and stuff like that. It's a number that's a very difficult, we would have to hire some engineer to come out with some ballpark figure on that.
Bob, I'm open to a much better suggestion than mine. The issue is that we talk about, wouldn't it be nice to underground the system? And I think it would be too. But how do we ask that question of people? You can't just ask them if they'd rather have it underground because it's not even. It costs a lot more to do that. We have to have a way to ask the question that we can get an answer.
I think the figure is going to be fairly large per household, so can we just put in there an approximation? Would
That's
you
all
be
I'm
willing to
asking.
pay this, at a minimum of this amount to underground, yes or no?
That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Ms. Player did provide me with ballpark numbers, but then she also said that all the other lines, like Comcast or whatever, then
Right, but this is going to be a minimum.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think the cost would be prohibitive for households unless you're a very wealthy household, but it might give us some knowledge and material that would allow us to, if there ever became a grant possible, to get something that we could work on.
So are you suggesting that we not bother with this at this point? Because I'm open to that too.
No, I'm saying if you want it, I think that's fine. But and I think it probably will be too expensive for anyone to say, I can't afford, you know.
I personally am not the biggest or loudest proponent of doing this, although I think it's a good idea.
All right, so Madam Clerk, can you work on that for the next newsletter?
Put it down for the fall newsletter.
Perfect.
Newsletter, is that okay with the commission? Paul?
Okay. All right, 11G, Commissioner Watts.
I'm in the wrong one. Okay, yeah.
This is,
yes. I think what I proposed should, it's just for discussion, and after my discussion with village manager, I have a couple of other things that I'd like to suggest. And I apologize if I was a little too vehement or emotional about the house on 116th and 117th Street, and if I could figure out how to get my camera to work, I would show you the pictures of it. But it just breaks my heart to see that house was desecrated. It's a 1920s mission-style house, and the new owners did ruin it by putting in, it looks like a bathroom, and taking out the front door and porch, and walling up the original door, taking out the picture windows, putting in French doors, and destroying the original windows, which were unique. And I think the reason many people want to be in Biscayne Park is because of its historic houses. And I think we have to have something in the code that has some teeth in it, something in our code that would stop someone from essentially desecrating a house. It's the bones. I feel like the house has been maligned and physically harmed by what has been done to it. And it's just in poor taste. The house is architecturally ruined. essentially, the front of it. And I wish that we had a design board or the planning and zoning board had something in the description of what it was tasked with that would say when someone wants to come in and make addition or changes to the house, that it be the permit be also be judged and accepted or denied on the basis of whether or not it fits with the historical style of the house.
Okay.
I don't know if you know the house in question.
I do.
Yeah. It's just.
Any other comments?
I think
Commissioner
Bob
Anderson?
has one first. I know the house. I don't see a problem with it. I know in Biscayne Park, we've never had a design. Basically, the lots were sold separately. Different style houses were built over the years. I just happen, where I live is about the only area of Biscayne Park that basically, for about 2 or 3 block area, all the houses were built approximately the same time, same design. That was for the returning GIs from the Second World War. The rest of it is just a mixture of everything. You've got a Michelin-style house maybe next to a modern designed house. It's just a mixture all over. I don't want to go ahead because if we go ahead and go down this road, look what it's costing us to go ahead and have a person who knows historic buildings come in, check out our log cabin and tell us what we really need to do and do it properly. You're asking people that happen to own a home here to, wait a minute, you're going to have to hire an expert architect, first of all, to come out with a design that deals with historic buildings. You're pushing people over the edge on costs, and it'd be a lot cheaper for them to do nothing with the house. And I think, you know, this is not a wealthy community. People on a lot of the houses are small houses. And you're going to go ahead and box them in and say, no, you can't put an addition on the house, because if you put an addition on this older style house, you got to go through all of this. You got to use this kind of special designs. It's all going to have to be custom made. And you want to have hurricane windows? Sorry, can't do it. They're not. You can go ahead and make something, and you're going to have to pay to get the county to approve it, but you can't use what's already available. I think it's wrong. It's completely wrong.
I disagree. Even that one block, it's all mission-style houses from 8th Avenue to 9th Avenue. And if we're so elated that we're going to restore the log cabin to its original splendor, and then disregard the rest of Biscayne Park, where the houses are especially the houses that are unique and quaint, then this is what brings people to live in Biscayne Park, not these houses that have been massacred. Even I think that these set small styles of windows when people change their garages into rooms. I mean, it could be done in a tasteful way, and I don't think it takes that much. Maybe a couple more people on the planning and zoning board. Just to take a look and say, okay, you want to make changes and you want to add an addition to your house, but take a look back and let's give you some suggestions how to do it more tastefully so that the visual character of Biscayne Park is not destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what Commissioner Anderson's saying, and I agree somewhat, but I also think that there should be, I think we should at least look at some limited regulation. I'm not saying that we're going to be overbearing and require them to historically renovate it to its original, but I think there's if we have the capability or the capacity and the residents that have expertise in that area, I'd like to see some type of limitation or you know, give the P&Z the ability to have some subjective criteria. Of course, we would have to amend the code, and so it's a lengthy process, but I think it's worth discussing.
Also, I think too, Miami Shores has a limited thing, and I did send in some websites with the others, and I don't think it doesn't have to be the draconian if you want historical preservation, but just some advice, because I was on the P&Z board for some months, and sometimes people would come in and it would be, oh, that roof is terrible for that house. They'd put a barrel roof on a 1950s house, and they'd just okay it, even though it's like destroys the architectural integrity of the house because barrel tiles are allowed. Well, if someone on the P&Z or the board could just say, no offense, but this is a little bit more appropriate. Why don't you consider this? You know.
Okay, Commissioner Ross.
Give some advice.
I agree with Commissioner Anderson. I think we have to be very careful about the blocks that we put in front of people who are trying to improve their properties. And the village had decided that we were going to go after funding for improving or renovating the log cabin, and that's sort of emblematic of the village. But to then apply that same standard to people's private homes when this is a modest community. This you know, is not Gables by the Sea. This is a place where people work for a living, and we want to encourage them to do the best that they can in order to bring properties in compliance. It would be great to have draw on the expertise and the knowledge of people in the community who can give an advice when a renovation is going to take place. But I would be very careful to make it a binding process for someone who buys a 1930s house and now they're stuck with 1930s windows.
I'm not quibbling about those windows, but I'm quibbling about a tiny bathroom window with a frosted window smack dab in the front of the house. There's a tiny little thing. It looks completely out of place, out of character. And walling in other windows. They spend a lot of money, or they're spending a lot of money. They could have done it tastefully rather than actually decreasing the value of that house forever.
Barbara, did they get a permit to do that?
I've asked Shanisa to look into it because I couldn't find it. The permits in the, going back through the minutes, and I think that, Candido, I asked about it, so I think there were
Yes,
some permits.
Commissioner Jonas, there was several permits issued. The property owner went to the Planning and Zoning Board, presented the plans. The Planning and Zoning Board members and board as a whole voted on the different projects the property has initiated and implemented, and it was all done under our code.
Okay. This community is not only modest, as Roxy says, but it's also eclectic, as Bob says. And I wouldn't see myself really as wanting to be that heavy-handed with people, to ride herd on them about details. The fact of the matter is, planning and zoning does exercise some design discretion for people. They have given a permit for this improvement, and for me, that's really enough. I don't need to determine the style of other people's houses.
Have you looked at that house?
No.
Oh my God, please do so.
Planning and zoning approved this.
I know, but
And that's why I've been playing
They have
telephone
a
tag
better
with
eye
Kate.
for this than you and I do.
Right, but the Planning and Zoning Board, as the code is currently drafted, the code doesn't have a lot of teeth in what they could deny. And so I think what Barbara is saying is to give them some more teeth in enforcing the design. But to do that, I think it's worthy of discussion, but we have a lot on our plate right now, and I think that's something down the road that we could revisit. At least that's my opinion.
Do you think we could ask the village manager to weigh in?
Sure.
In my experience, there's been several ways that this has been done in other communities. You can go to one end and do a historic preservation board. You could constitute a design review board. You could do design guidelines, or you could give more teeth to the existing board by rewriting portions of the code and have specific language in there regarding specific architectural styles. In my experience, that opens you up to broad interpretation without it being clearly a historic preservation type ordinance. And it seems from just your discussion, the consensus is not necessarily to go for historic designation, which again, in my experience, usually first you have to do a historic resources study of the entire proposed district or proposed structures to be included, and there's an expense with that, usually matched with the state funding, but just, you know, you still have to come up with substantial funding on behalf of the village. So I think we can address this at some point with the direction of the commission to perhaps add some language to the Planning and Zoning Board duties and the criteria that they use to look for. But I think, just my experience in working with boards, they like to have some kind of design guidelines to back them up. And again, that's the expense, that's the time, that's a pretty big, lengthy document. So you know, that's kind of the way to fit it into what we have now without creating a new board, which I think the consensus is not to create a new board at this time.
Well, you know, in the change in the in the roofing changes that we were having, there's that one paragraph that said it should be appropriate to the style of the house, something like that. If there were just to be in the what this board, the P&Z board is charged with, so if we could just change the language to include a little something to.
But at this point, the Planning and Zoning Board is not charged with, if my understanding and recollection is correct, is not charged with necessarily looking at any design feature. It is more exterior changes, and they don't have the teeth to look at design. So I think it's not just adding language in about going with the architectural features of the house, but also giving them other design control as well.
And also too, because like I said, we have houses that are, the ages are all over. So, you know, what would be considered with my house built in the middle 40s, but can be considered, you know, fall under this?
Generally,
you know,
the
it could
rule
be-
of thumb is 50 years or older. So
Right.
there's a
So you get
a can
into,
of
that's what I'm
worms
saying,
here.
it keeps
Mhm.
opening up because there's such a mix of houses all
Mm-hmm.
over here.
Why don't we do this?
I
Why don't we come put it back to the next meeting or the meeting after, and so we can gather some you and I can gather some additional thoughts. I mean, obviously separately, but and we can have a more substantive discussion.
Also, Mayor, we're currently searching for planning services, and this was something that we would most likely rely on an outside planner to guide us on. So we are not at the point where we have planning services on board.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to 11H. Is it appropriate to take Irwin so that he doesn't have to sit through every?
Yeah, I think he left, though. You want to see if
But he-
he left. You want to see if Caesar's gone?
No, I mean, but does he have something to present?
He's just here to answer questions that you might have on the monthly financials.
Okay. I mean, if he's still here, it just may make sense so that he doesn't have to.
Mayor?
Yes.
Why don't we in the future, when the monthly
Yeah.
financials come out, move, you know,
Move
put
him
them-
up, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, all right, let's take 11H.
I'm just, while we're on that topic, it's much better for me to have the monthly financial in advance of the meeting.
Yeah, we've said that in the past.
Yeah.
We will relay that.
Okay.
Again, I apologize for not having provided backup. In 2010, the village agreed to a franchise agreement with FP&L, and there were two kinds of disagreement from people in the village about having that agreement with FP&L. One was that we didn't need FP&L to collect money for us and then return it to us. We could do that ourselves. We could find some way to charge money. And the other was that the agreement with FP&L created one disadvantage for us, and that was that we could not create and sell electricity. This issue had really come up in about 2008, 2 years before the agreement had to be signed, and there wasn't really much discussion about it until the very last minute when these two issues were raised. So we now have 26 more years until we have to sign an agreement again if we are to develop revenue-producing methods and consider the possibility that the village of Biscayne Park would ever want to create electricity to sell. It seems to me we should probably start working on it now. So I'm thinking that maybe the people who had that issue, who would be interested in this, would like to form a board and they can start looking into it.
Can I suggest, rather than a formal board which requires a reading of an ordinance, 2 hearings, and the staff liaison to sit with them, perhaps it could be explored by an ad hoc committee.
That's fine. I mean, this is frankly not my issue. I'm looking out for people in the future, people who will feel that these kinds of explorations should have been done, they should have been done in advance, and they should not feel that this issue was sprung on them 26 years from today.
I
That's
think,
what we put up with in 2010.
I think we're moving a little too quick. I can understand doing this, let's say, 5, 6 years before the franchise agreement goes to expire, because who knows what technology is going to even be there. It could be stuff that you can't even envision now. There might be a way of, it may not even use wires for you know, doing it. So I mean, to me, I think, you know, if a group of people want to get together to discuss it, fine, but I don't think we need to have anything formal on this.
And I'd like to also maybe suggest that Y-Green, hopefully if it all comes to play and it gets rolled out, there might be some expertise that we could tap into a couple of years down the line.
It's fine with me.
All right. Yeah, I think it's good forward thinking, but maybe too forward.
Perfect.
But related to that, with the franchise agreement that we did sign with FPL, isn't it that we can create solar energy, generate solar energy that we give to FPL and then they pay us or something like that? Isn't that the case?
This is
John, do you
state.
remember? It's a
This
state.
falls under the states.
Right. The key is that we basically can't operate our own power plant
Yeah.
and compete with them. That's really, it's really a non-compete.
Mhm.
If we provided anything and offered it to them,
Yeah.
they would accept that.
And then they give somebody a kickback or something?
Well,
a
it would,
kickback.
yeah, it would, because that helps them not to build further power plants and things. They would give us.
Oh, but I thought if we generated solar energy, for instance, that then they would reduce our bills or something.
Yeah, that's true.
That's,
We actually-
that's
that's
for
in
what
there.
we use internally.
Correct.
But what we're not allowed to do is create it and
Yeah.
sell it externally.
Yeah.
Correct.
That was the complaint.
Yeah.
So I don't want that complaint to come up again 26 years from now and have people say, well, we weren't ready to think about it and we need more time.
Okay.
I think we should give them plenty of time.
Just one suggestion that this is off the slight sidebar to your argument. One thing we might think of doing is tasking the ecology board to study solar panels or things to do
Excellent.
put something on top of the rec center. I know it's very expensive, but the prices of these things are coming down, and we might be able to generate something there.
There is municipalities who are doing it.
Yeah.
Doing that. It's right now it's the wealthy municipalities. There's a few of them that have done it because they can afford to do it because it's saving you money, but you really it's like a 20 or 30 year payback. So it's not really that practical for now. For now, but like you say, things are cheaper, and that would be a good something good for the ecology board maybe to look at.
Yeah, and even ecological lighting around the rec center they could explore.
Okay. Any other comments on that?
Consensus to task.
Yeah, Erwin, I'm sorry. We're gonna, in future meetings, we're gonna move you up so you don't.
What you have in front of you are the fiscal highlights for the 7 months ended April 30th, 2014. You received an initial set of documents, and I believe followed up by the second set with the same financial data with the graphs on it. We are 7 months into the year, which means we have completed 58% of the year for that 7 months. If we look at the expenditures on the general fund, you'll notice that everything is in line. In fact, if you look at it overall, we've expended 52% for the 7 months, where we should be at 58. We're a little bit underspent, for the 7 months ended April, which is very, very good. None of the departments are really running over the limit. Everything is within budget for that 7 month period. Looking at the revenues, you can see that we've collected 77% of our yearly budgeted revenues. Of course, our ad valorem is front-loaded. We collected all in the months normally of October through January. We collect most of those revenues. You notice that there are two variances noted on the revenues, even though they're very positive. I mean, we're already at 65% on our fines and forfeitures, and that was because we had, I have to give kudos to our code enforcement department. They did an excellent job, and we collected a substantial number of code enforcement fines during the month for that month. Looking at the miscellaneous income, you notice there was two items that accounted for a good part of the increase for the miscellaneous income. That was we had a van sale, which goes under other income, and we had reimbursements from accidents that our police department had, we were reimbursed by the insurance company. We do not net it against the expense. We have to show the revenue on one side and the expenditure is shown on the other side. However, if you look overall, you'll see that, again, we're well below the 58% where we should be for the end of that period. Before I move on to the other funds, are there any questions on the general fund? Yes, sir.
Is it normal that to have 77% of our revenue this time of the year?
Yes. Remember the ad valorem, most of that, we collect probably 60% of the ad valorem by the end of November.
Right. But
And that's the chunk of our revenue.
But what's left, what is still left to come in, is it normally lagged this far behind?
Yeah, what's left to come in is only a very small amount, because the ad valorem makes up 80% of our total revenues, which we're all getting between October and January. The only time we see a spike in the ad valorem is in June and July when we have the tax sales, because we'll see the last remainder come in under the ad valorem.
Because we still have, what's it, 22% still to come in?
Commissioner Anderson, and
No, if you look at the ad valorem, it's only 5%.
No, I'm talking about on just full revenues. I'm just going by revenues.
Yes. Yeah, and most of those are going to be the franchise fees, the utility taxes, and those types of revenues that come in on a monthly basis. And all the intergovernmental revenues, the house and sales tax, and the sewer tax that come in.
we're also a little behind on building permit revenue, so our hope is that people will spend their summers doing driveways, roofs, and fences. It's kind of hard. We're going into the rainy season, but that's also some of the revenue that we can expect through the end of the year.
Okay.
But also remember, there's a split on those, so that even though our revenues are down, you notice that our building our license and permits on the expenditure side are also below budget because it's a split on each of those transactions. If we turn to the second page, we'll see a snapshot of the sanitation fund as well as the roads fund. Looking at the sanitation fund, we can see that right now we're running about 1% over budget on our expenditures, where through April we have spent $432,249 against a year-to-date budget of $427,687, or approximately about a $4,000 and change deficit for the 7-month period. So that, we had budgeted, I believe, for the year. There's about $18,000 is going to be the deficit for the year. I think is what we had budgeted for, and that we're going to end up probably about $7,000 or $8,000 for the year overall in a deficit position.
I'm just wondering why.
Who would, Candido?
In the sanitation department, there were unexpected repair and maintenance to the trucks. That's going to take us a little bit over budget.
Okay.
If you look at the year to date, we're probably looking at about $600 a month. For another 5 months is $3,000, so in the $7,000 to $8,000 range over budgeted. And again, as Candido said, that's because of the excessive repairs that we had on the equipment.
Now, anytime, at the end of the fiscal year, any monies that the general fund had to subsidize our sanitation department, is the sanitation department supposed to be paying the general fund back in the following year after that?
It doesn't have to be the following year, but eventually there's always going to be a due to, due from between the funds.
Right.
And eventually those funds would be replenished.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The sanitation has to pay back the monies that it has
Sure, if it's
pulled.
borrowed, of course, sure.
Right. Because I know last month it was brought up that the sanitation fund went over by, I think it was $91,000. It was pulled out of the general fund, so the sanitation department or sanitation fund owes that.
Right.
Back to the general
Anytime
fund.
there's a deficit, the funds are going to be coming from the general fund reserves.
Right. So what we need to do is make sure what our dollar amount in the taxes as far as on the sanitation is high enough to include making those payments back.
Right, but you also got to remember that it's very hard to budget when your equipment's breaking down. It's very hard to come up with an amount you're going to assess each resident ahead of time because it could change on a monthly basis.
Correct, but last year was at 91,000, so whatever we've set our sanitation fund for this coming year needs to, I'm hoping that's in there to be paying that $91,000 back.
I'd have to take a look at the fund balances to give you an answer on that, which I will. I'll take a look at the fund balances and tell you where we are on each of the fund balances.
All right.
Yes.
Irwin, do we expect to be in a negative position with the sanitation fund at the end of the fiscal year?
Yes. By about $8,000.
By how much?
About $8,000. And that's just a guess to where we are at the end of April and extrapolating it to the end of September, about $8,000. Because remember, there's no other real revenues coming in at this point. We've already collected, whatever we're going to get in is going to be the remainder that we get in on the sanitation through the ad valorem collections.
Right.
Right? And the
In
only
June
other thing
or
we have
July.
is a special trash pickup, which is only about $5,000. That's an immaterial amount to look at the overall total.
Did the sanitation fee that was set at the last meeting take into account the projected money that will be owed the village by the end of this year?
No, it's just, we just take into account, basically, we look at the operating expenses, and that's what we use as the basis for the.
So so correct me if I'm wrong. So then the sanitation assessment that we have set for the forthcoming year, that will cover just the expenses for next year, but it won't have enough money to pay back the village.
But that doesn't need to be paid back in the next year, correct?
Right.
It could be spread over multiple years?
It could be multiple years.
And it could be future?
Right.
Okay. Any other comments?
And it's $8,000
Well, I'm just saying that
approximately.
if it's
No.
$4,600 for the 7 months, I'm saying it's about $600 a month, and with the number of months left, it'd be about $8,000.
But wouldn't it also too, that 91,000 that was brought up, that was from the previous year that had to?
Well, we have to take a look at the fund balance, because it could have been the opposite 2 years before that. So we have to see what the fund balance is in order to give
All
you,
right.
in order for me to give you the proper answer on that.
If you could, go ahead.
Sure, I'll do that. I'm sorry? Okay. The roads fund. If we take a look at the roads fund, now most of the money for the roads fund is coming from our local option gas taxes that we get from the state. You can see that for the roads fund, we have approximately $69,000 in revenue. The intergovernmental revenue, you see, a lot of that is also going to be some of the revenue sharing that we get from the state. 26.62% of what we get from revenue sharing, we can spend for the special revenue funds, and that's what's been allocated there. So you can see that we've been right on target on the roads fund, that we have spent 95% of what we budgeted for roads year to date, so we're right on target, and that's not a fund where we're going to be running over. We've got the one project going now for the street repair on 111th, which was for the $39,000, and that's right on target, and that will be spent by the end of the year. Any questions on the special revenues?
I want to apologize because I said it'd be better for me to get these in advance, and I see that it was emailed to me on May 31st by the clerk. Was that a Saturday?
Maybe.
No.
I can vouch for it.
I can tell you exactly when it
Thank
was.
you.
It was a Thursday evening when I gave the first cut to the manager, and I sent the second one out that she got on Sunday evening.
I think you said it.
No, my email says May 31. So thank you for that.
Our goal is to always try to have it in the agenda package.
And I apologize, I rushed at this. I was away for continuing education that Thursday and Friday, so I had to do it remotely, which is why you got it without the graphics on the first release, and I apologize for that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Any questions on that? The audit, by the way, is just about complete. I just finished the last pieces for the CAFR. It'll be going to the auditors this week. We did apply and got a 1-month extension on the CAFR to the end of June, so we should have the report issued by then.
Erwin, can you check your, I don't think that I got an email from you, so can you just make sure? I could be mistaken, but just make sure that you have my correct email address.
I didn't send it out.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I was the one that sent it out.
Okay.
Dave, I got
All right,
it.
I'll double check. All right. Thank you, Erwin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erwin.
The 11I, Commissioner Jonas.
Yeah, we have talked in the past about the concept of neighbors helping neighbors, and somebody needs help. There is a resident who lives on 9th Court. Barbara Watts has talked about him in her last newsletter post. This is somebody who has a daughter who has come down with a serious medical condition. The father is the homeowner. He has had to take a great deal of time away from work to take care of his daughter. He's had very little income, and part of the consequence of that is that he has a roof which was leaking, and then he put a tarp on it. That tarp has been there for probably at least many months now, and the neighbors are complaining about it. The tarp now has a tree growing through it, and he's still not working very much, and he can't get himself a new roof. So I was thinking that, considering that a roof costs somewhere in the $12,000 to $14,000 range, that if the residents of Biscayne Park, if the homeowners would be willing to donate to this guy somewhere around $11 or $12 each one time, then he gets a new roof, and we help him out. So what I wanted to discuss among us is whether we can find some way to ask our neighbors if they would do that.
Commissioner Watts?
I think it's a great idea. In fact, I mentioned it to Joe Chow as a possibility for the foundation to do something, not for roof, but for fundraising for that. I asked if the foundation could fundraise for a family in need. And he was amenable to that and asked me to email it, which of course I haven't done, to put it on the agenda. So it could be something we could ask the foundation to do.
This guy needs a new roof soon. The foundation, is as great as it is and as hard as it works, never ever raises that kind of money. And if we have to wait for them to come up with that much money, it'll never happen. So I'm thinking of an outreach from us, from the commission, to our neighbors who live in Biscayne Park.
Okay, so it's not something that, it's something that you would sort of spearhead maybe, or it's not necessarily something
I don't know
staff
how
would-
I could, but I'd be happy to if I could.
But you can do it as a resident, right?
Well, I'm sort of looking for the imprimatur of the commission. Gives it a little different kind of weight than if it's just me.
Mayor, if I may, the idea is great. The problem is in implementation as a government agency, how you do that. You're not, for example, even a 501c3, which normally is what you would look for. And in addition, there may be an argument from another neighbor or another area that, well, we have someone even more in need, and you didn't address that need. So it's very difficult as a government agency, as a municipality, to organize the collection of that money. Like, how do you have staff do it? And really, how do you select that individual, because you know about that individual, as opposed to others you may or may not know? So you could use your influence, obviously, and your connections, and maybe even try to see what agencies are out there that could assist them, and maybe have them be the instrument in which you can collect your money. But as great as an idea it is, you're really just not set up as a government agency to do that.
But can I ask a question? Just like there have been requests for a covered dish in our newsletter, the newsletter can be used as a vehicle to solicit donations if there's a 501c3 who's willing to.
That's exactly right. Right. So if you find that 501c3, you could help with the publicizing of that, of course. And
We have a 501c3, it's the foundation.
That's right.
But they generally do not produce this kind of revenue that could pay for a roof. And I'm just thinking maybe the commission, if it was a request from the commission, not just from the foundation, that it would be more effective. Maybe it wouldn't, and maybe you're saying we shouldn't get mixed up in it.
well, but there could be, the commission could request that and request that it goes through the 501c3, which people are more likely to incline to donate to anyway because of the tax consequences are clear.
Just a couple of thoughts come to mind, and on that issue of the 501c3, I think that when you donate to a charity, a 501c3, the donor is not allowed to say, I want this specifically to be used for this particular family. So I think it creates some difficulty or maybe some challenge to the charitable donation.
Well, unless we put it as a fund with their name on it, and that's what you're donating to.
Well, my experience was last summer when I was doing some, encouraging people to donate to the family because the daughter had fallen ill and they were having huge medical expenses. I did encourage people through email. I wrote checks myself, and people did donate money and try to be supportive of the family. But I also did get people come back to me and say, well, how do you know that they truly are in need? I mean, I did not investigate their finances.
That's part of the difficulty.
And so we're going to have that kind of a response as well. I feel a little leery about making it too much of an organized effort that the village or even myself as a commissioner is, you know, in charge of and running, but I have no problems whatsoever with sending out emails and reminding people of the need and encouraging them to donate money towards the family, if that will help.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Ross. Okay. Does that work? Commissioner Jones?
Not exactly, in the sense that this issue is not only a private issue, it's also a public issue. Because of the condition of the roof and the tarp, which is really not in keeping with our code, and the neighbors are complaining about it, but the family can't afford to do anything about it because they don't have the money. And the father, he's working a little bit now, but he's not working at his usual capacity because he has to take care of his daughter.
We have a family, we have an elderly couple who live sort of on the northeast end of the park. I'm not going to remember the street number, but I remember talking to Reggie, code officer, about this elderly couple. They just cannot afford a new roof, and their roof is slowly sinking in. And of course, they came before the board. The board's trying to work with them to bring them in compliance, but they just don't have the funds to repair their roof. So, you know, then how do we choose who's more worthy?
Fair enough.
Well, but this family is facing over $1 million in medical bills as we speak, and they've paid off a lot of it. And the daughter's on Medicaid. I think that we should try to find a way and have a choose, like every year, something for someone needy. I think that as a community, you know, it's something, the kind of thing that the civic clubs would do in the past. I'm thinking of maybe if we had to go through some other agency. I know that my cousin regularly gives fundraisers for people who have hemophilia. And I think that, well, maybe we should ask the foundation what they think. I don't know, divide the money between two houses that need roofs? I think it would be a good thing for us to do as a community and find some way legally to do it.
But I think we used to have a method that you just mentioned. It was the Civic Club. Back when the Civic Club existed, in fact, there was one house that completely repainted and did work, and then we did it for other houses. But the community sort of decided, you know, we want to get away. We just don't want to bother working with the meetings and trying to do good for the community as a whole. The citizens decided to pull back. That's why the Civic Club just dwindled down to it doesn't exist anymore. If you can figure out some way to go ahead and get the community back together and go ahead and reformulate that Civic Club, that's a vehicle for that. It's just the community didn't want to support it.
Okay, so I think let's, you know, privately we may want to work together and do what we can.
Sounds right.
But not as a commission.
Sounds fine.
Okay. All right. 12 requests for items on the next agenda. Anything?
Well, we certainly should, if I may, address the metal roof issue that was brought before us.
Okay.
If a majority of the commission wishes to proceed with having an ordinance drafted and further discussion and 2 hearings as is the norm, I would
agree.
move for that.
Yep.
Okay. I agree. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that we might have a brief discussion of increasing our means of communications in the village, perhaps in anticipation of next year's budget, of allocating some money to increase the ways and the efficacy with which we try to communicate with the village. If so many people did not hear about the sanitation change, it suggests that the newsletter and some of the other things are just not effective means of communication. We need to do something more. I was thinking like for something like block captains.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should have a general conversation about that. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Then also, just 2 other things. I have I wondered if we might consider as a foundation making a resolution asking, actually, that we will ask the Miami-Dade Commission to consider legislation that will ban plastic bags or make them cost 5 cents to encourage people to bring their own bags to grocery stores. This is something that's going on throughout the country. Most of the area, Albemarle County, places in D.C., are all charging either 5 cents for a bag to encourage people to bring their own bags, and
But
it's
we
been
don't have
effectively.
I mean, you
We
know,
don't, but we could ask the Miami-Dade, get Sally Heyman and some of those other people thinking green, in a way. I mean, I think Miami-Dade County is behind the times in doing that.
That has already been discussed with the county. League of Cities has already been working on it. There's two issues on that. One, definitely with the plastic bags into the environment, especially into the water, which is horrible. But then you get the flip side, it's starting to show these cloth bags that you use all the time, unless you take them each time you go to use them, you have washed them. And with bleach, because if you don't, the amount of bacteria that is being discovered that is growing on those bags, they're really not very sanitary. Then you get into the other part. A lot of people, including me, I use those plastic bags for my garbage. So, you know, either I'm using those bags or I'm going to go buy a plastic bag. And so, you know, you're not going to completely eliminate it, but there should be some way to control it, because it's over. Now, that is being discussed. I just want to assure you that it's been almost a year ago that was brought up. There was some resolutions, but it just didn't go very far. But it is surface again.
You know, I think that's one of those change.org petitions that you send to Publix Corporation, and you ask them to give people 3 cents off for every time they bring in a bag of their own, instead of charging them for the new bag.
Okay, anything else?
Then one other.
I'm sorry, is that coming back? Is that the answer? Okay.
But when I'll talk with you afterwards. I can't. But if you hear of, and I miss the League of Cities thing.
If there's anything, any of the resolutions, in fact, every meeting, it's brought back, and our clerk puts it on our website.
No, I forwarded it to the commission.
Oh, you forwarded it to the commission. Okay, it's being that whole agenda, every month's agenda, the commission is getting.
Yeah, which I don't think we need to get.
And as it possibly may come back, I wouldn't talk. The two of you won't talk.
No, I won't. That's why I just realized it would come up.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, one thing. It's a sticky wicket, but I was accepted into the Good Government Institute that Katie Sorensen sponsors through the University of Miami. That Commissioner Ross was in her very first class, and the tuition is steep, and I can't do it on my own. I just don't make enough money. And I wondered if the commission might consider if there's any money anywhere budgeted in the budget or for next year's budget, whether or not anything could be allocated. I know we spend money educating all of the administration for their courses and things that they take. And I just wanted to know if the commission would consider it.
So add that to the agenda for next month?
Okay. All right, so 13A, Village Manager, do you have anything?
Included in your agenda package was the staff's goals and priorities for fiscal year 2014-2015. I recognize at this late hour everyone's getting a little antsy. Our intention was to have a discussion. My hope is that you had an opportunity to review it, and perhaps at this late hour, if you have, instead of me going through the entire document, if you have any items you would like to see, just to kind of describe the purpose of this document. This will serve as our framework as we build our budget. We are going to the best of our ability, it's often hard to do within municipal government budgeting, but to the best of our ability, we are going to approach the budget this year as a zero-based budget, meaning we're going to build it from the ground up based on the programs that we agree to, we the commission and the staff agree going forward. So this document will serve as our framework as we start to build the budget. I am hoping that you can at least give us a little feedback tonight. The staff will be beginning their budget preparation Thursday of this week. Is our intention to start spending the next 3 to 4 weeks building our budget in anticipation of us doing the proposed millage in mid-July, and then the budget hearings throughout August. I'm sorry, thank you. The budget workshops throughout August and the budget hearings in the month of September, which is the usual schedule that's followed by the commission. So I would welcome any feedback on the document that we presented to you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Sure. I'd like to see two things added. One would be on our alleys, to go ahead and repave, start looking at repaving the alleys. And the original pavement that was used is recycled asphalt. So it's a lot cheaper, a lot easier to put down. It was something that we started doing, but we never kept up with it because it's a thin coating. You're supposed to, every couple of years, you got to put another coating down. And recycled asphalt is when they, like when they do 6th Avenue, they're going to be grinding that down. That stuff that they're grinding, they sell that. Or they may give it to us because it's so close, and just spread it out there, and when you're driving on it during the hot summer months, it all melts back in and it looks like asphalt. So the other thing is on the code violations that we were discussing a little bit earlier. I'd like to see something on our website. This is the violation, so this is, not the courtesy notices.
Gotcha.
To have some kind of a searchable way on our website. So if somebody appears, if it appears to one of the neighbors that code isn't doing anything, because look at that horrible house, they can go ahead and go on the website and take a look and say, 5 years ago, they've got a running fine for 5 years. Code did what they could have done. And also, they got a lien on the house now too. But I mean, just some kind of something searchable that the residents can go ahead and take a look at our website and pull up an address.
We'll include it.
On the, those are very good suggestions. On the one about the alleys, I'm thinking that that's probably something we would look at. We talked about doing a master plan for street drainage and street paving, and so that's probably something that would be included in that study.
Yes, but that study can only be done if the commission moves forward with the assessment for stormwater and road stormwater drainage and road improvements. So that's also, I think, a future discussion we need to have. I think we'll have that during the budget season, whether we will implement such an assessment in 2015.
Right. I know when I reviewed the budget, the agenda with you, we talked about that goals and some specific things, and I don't have my notes with me now, but we'll visit it again.
Yes.
Commissioner Watt?
Yeah.
I don't have my
did you have
notes
me
in
down?
front of me too. They must be on a
Okay.
post-it note on my desk of post-it notes. Sorry
Right.
about that.
Commissioner Watts, anything?
Yeah, well, as the village manager knows already, the implementation of agendas on utilization of laptops or tablets and the dispensing, to dispense with the books that we have for our agenda meetings, I would like that to be optional. Or I really like looking through these things this way rather than on a tablet, and I don't have a tablet. And that's all.
Okay. Commissioner Jones, anything?
Nothing right now.
All right.
Announcements? Just announcements next?
No, she
just-
has one more item, I think.
There's two more.
Update on the.
A couple more things. I went to the, I'll go real quick. I went to the zoning hearing for the County Zoning Appeals Board on May 29th, where they heard the Miami Country Day application. Before that meeting, right after our last commission meeting, I sat down with representatives from the school, and they agreed to amend the plans to include a state fencing along the Biscayne Canal, landscaping along that fencing, and to control the light spillage from the upper parking deck of the new garage. They, true to their commitment of my personal meeting with them, they went into the hearing with those proposed changes in a written statement that they submitted to the county board, and the county board accepted those changes. So it went really well. We've opened those lines of communication. We're also going to work with FDOT on the timing of the light once school starts up again in the fall to see if we can address some of those car backups. I have just one other item. I just want to, we can bring it back for the next agenda, but I received a letter from Citizens Crime Watch of Miami-Dade County. They have an event. The event is not until September 19th, 2014. It is called the Declaring War on Breast Cancer Support the Fight, and they are looking to municipalities for support for this event. I know that we've had some participation in the past for this event. I'll bring it back for the next agenda.
I have something real quick. The city attorney, the manager and I met with the mayor of, former mayor of North Miami. Suspended
Mayor in transition.
Mayor in transition of North Miami, regarding the water agreement. And she instructed the city attorney to cooperate with us to finalize that agreement and get it signed. So I think at this point, since she's not there, I think you should follow up with the city attorney.
Be happy to.
Okay.
Yep. And I cede the rest of my time to the clerk.
What's that?
I cede the rest of my time to the clerk.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
You have item 13C before you, which is for the Public Art Advisory Board member.
I make a motion to approve the candidate for the advisory board.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Anderson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ross. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, I had one question about the former item, Heidi. When you talked with the Miami Country Dade School, this is about that, are you going to see them again, do you think, or talk with them again? Or do you think? And did you talk with about the noise? I've heard residents that as far away as like 7th and 8th and 114th Street complain about the noise for their special events. And I wonder, did you address that at all?
We talked, Dr. Davies and I talked. He explained that some members of our community have his personal cell phone and they reach out to them when they have concerns. I'm happy to serve as a conduit if there's any residents who have concerns about noise, because Dr. Davies shared his personal contact information with me as well, the headmaster.
Thank you.
Also, when they actually construct that building, it's going to block some of it. It's not going to block it all, but it will.
Yeah, you're right.
All righty, announcements.
Thank you. Wednesday, June 4th is a code review board meeting at 7 p.m. Also tomorrow, June 4th, is meet and greet with the police chief applicants at Village Hall at 5:30. Friday, June 6th is coffee with the mayor at 9 a.m. Monday, June 9th is the Biscayne Park Foundation at 7 p.m. Tuesday, June 10th is Code Compliance Board at 7 p.m. Wednesday, June 11th is Public Art Advisory Board at 6 p.m. Saturday, June 14th is Food and Tunes at 6:30 p.m. Monday, June 16th, Planning and Zoning Board at 6:30 p.m. Wednesday, June 18th, Parks and Parkway Advisory Board at 6 p.m. Wednesday, June 18th is a Code Review Board at 7 p.m. Saturday, June 21st is our special Saturday trash pickup from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday, June 23rd is the Ecology Board at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, June 24th is the Recreation Advisory Board at 7 p.m. And our next regular commission meeting is Tuesday, July 1st at 7 p.m.
Make a motion to adjourn.